There is a natural, physical body and there is a spiritual body. So states St. Paul in his first epistle to the Corinthians. Psychic research, too, has long ago established the belief that within every material being is a non-material double, a cryptic entity coinciding, with minute exactitude, with the physical mechanism in every center and cell. Records are numerous, coming from many trustworthy scientists, which substantiate the claim that this non-material being, the astral body as it is commonly termed by them, is capable of separating from its physical counterpart, and of existing entirely outside its material abode, intangible to the beings surrounding it. This enigmatic occurrence will be spoken of as an astral projection, or astral exteriorization, both terms being synonymous. In occult writings, many have told of this strange phenomenon of astral projection, but with all the knowledge thus far accumulated we may still consider ourselves merely in the kindergarten of the school of mystery. For exteriorization of the astral body is, in fact, the first step into that mysterious realm called death, which sooner or later all of us must enter. So, reader, if you are interested in this dark phenomenon, if you have stood o'er the casket and gazed upon the cold corpse, and in silence or have wondered how that being who only shortly before was animate, possessed of intelligence, moving, thinking, and talking, even as you, he could now be but a lifeless clod, the same as you shudder to think you too will become, then you are interested in astral projection. For astral projection and death are not unlike. To the vast multitudes who have never met with this phenomenon, and even to those who have in some manner acquainted themselves with it, it must necessarily be placed in the category of theories, but to the conscious astral projector himself, exteriorization of the non-material counterpart of the physical is a great reality, as self-evident as the fact that he is consciously alive. At the outset, the reader should understand that the writer is well acquainted with the phenomenon, having indulged in hundreds of projections during a period of 12 years, projections both of a pleasant and a disagreeable nature, while completely conscious and partially conscious. The greater part of the material contained in this work is from his own experience. After so many years as an astral projector, and at the same time while conducting many experiments with the phase, I have gleaned countless facts and made numerous reasonable deductions from those facts, some of which, so far as I can ascertain, have never before been discovered or made known by other writers in the occult field. Realizing that the world is filled with skeptics who stand pat in their tracks, proclaiming themselves practical, who are not open to new possibilities, that prove it folks who cannot see that the road leading to the real is befogged with mystery, and merges into the horizon of mystery at both ends, I wish to state that, if you are one of this type, looking for proofs that can be measured and weighed through the medium of your limited mind and 5 senses, you will not find them in this book. The materialist, of course, will reject the very idea of astral projection as nonsense. Reason is his idol, the light that guides his convictions. He revels under what he terms the divine torch of reason. There is only one trouble with this divine torch: it doesn't shed much light on the mysteries of life. Life itself is beyond comprehension by the mind of man, to say nothing of its appealing to reason. Just which of the materialist's 5 senses it is that gives him an understanding of life, of creation, or of thought and mental processes, he does not make known, yet he must accept them. Indeed, everything is accepted without extensive reasoning. We may examine everything, examine anything, analyze till doomsday, yet there will always loom up the inexplicable. On the other hand, there is no point in the occult teachings better established, longer held, or more thoroughly proven, says William Walker Atkinson, than that of the existence of the astral body. This teaching of the ancient occultists is being corroborated by the experiments and investigations of the psychic researchers of the present day. The astral body, belonging to every person, is an exact counterpart of the perfect physical body of the person. It is composed of fine ethereal matter, and is usually encased in the physical body. In ordinary cases, the detachment of the astral body from its physical counterpart is accomplished only with great difficulty, but in the case of dreams, great mental stress, and under certain conditions of occult development, the astral body may become detached and sent on long journeys, traveling at a rate of speed only less than that of light waves. On these journeys it is always connected with the physical body by a long, filmy, connecting link. If this link were to become broken, the person would die instantly, but this is an almost unheard of occurrence in the ordinary planes of action. The astral body exists a long time after the death of the physical body, but it disintegrates in time. It sometimes hovers around the resting place of the physical corpse, and is mistaken for the spirit of the deceased person, although really it is merely a shell, or finer outer coating of the soul. The astral body of a dying person is often projected to the presence of friends and loved ones a few moments before the physical death, the phenomenon arising from the strong desire of the dying person to see and be seen. The astral body frequently travels from its physical counterpart in psychomantic phenomena, and visits scenes far distant, there sensing what is occurring. It also leaves the body during what are known as psychomantic dreams, or under the influence of anesthetics, or in some of the deeper phases of hypnosis, when it visits strange scenes and places, and often holds mental conversation with other astral bodies, or else with disembodied entities. The jumbled and distorted recollections of these dreams are occasioned by the brain not having received perfect impressions transmitted to it, by reason of lack of training, development, etc., the result being like a blurred or distorted photographic plate. I have assumed that the reader has already convinced himself of the reality of the phenomenon, or is occultly interested enough to accept it. No discussion will be made of spiritism in general, which does not contribute to the problems of astral projection, for there are volumes too numerous to mention by far more able writers than myself. In this study we are mostly concerned with certain eccentricities of the astral body which take place while we are physically alive, and although this astral body exists through and after death, as I have mentioned before, others have told of its survival, so our interest rests upon considerations of the astral body before the physical counterpart has been permanently severed from it. We call ourselves physically alive, but in reality the material part of us is as dead as a doornail. It is the energy behind the physical mechanism that is the real, live thing. Nerves themselves are not alive. If they were, we have buried many a living body. It is the neuric energy which animates, and the astral body is the condenser of the nervous energy you are using right now. Why, you will say, then the astral body is in existence now? And it is. Many have been the authorities upon this subject of astral projection, and many are under the impression that the astral body is formed by a mental process, which is not the case. If it were the case, where would the victim who is bumped off instantly get his astral body? If such were the case, no one would be possessed of an astral body after death, except the fellow who was lucky enough to have heard of the creative mental process. Yes, you are using your astral body even now. It is tuned down, we might say, to harmonize with the vibrations common to material substance. Now there are factors which hold it down, and there are factors which tune it up. The powers which can be exerted to disharmonize the attunement are the powers which will cause the astral to move out of the physical. The astral body coincides with the physical throughout. Both bodies being substance, it is obvious that both will be identical in shape, and the phantom is, in appearance, an exact duplicate of the physical body. Surviving what is termed death, the astral body is often seen by others present at death, the true likeness of the physical. After death, the phantom continues to hold this true form, but sooner or later changes to a much more finely composed spirit. The range of vibration to which our earthly existence is limited does not extend over all creation, consequently we are unaware of the vast realities all around us. When the astral phantom, whose eyes you are using even now in reading this, becomes tuned up, which it can be, those eyes will be able to see other things besides the familiar surroundings, and the astral body will be able to get out of the physical. The fact that the eyes, after projection, are capable of seeing earthly and other astral beings too shows that the range of vibration has increased. This may appear paradoxical to one who is accustomed to the idea that the conscious mind is a part of the physical mechanism. In fact, the material body has no mind at all, but clings over the astral, to speak symbolically, which is the real ego, through which the conscious mind really functions. It is erroneous to believe that the astral being has a supermentality. It has not. The conscious mind, as you know it, is the mind of the astral body. Your normal, conscious mind, everything it contains, is the you the individual, now and throughout eternity, learning as it goes. There is, however, the subconscious, that vast, unfathomable superintelligence which is well nigh omnipotent and inherent in all, yet we do not conceive this as the individual, as we do the conscious. Most believers in the spirit are somehow under the impression that, to awaken in the astral, is to be enlightened by all the powers of the subconscious, which is not the case, for the subconscious sustains practically the same relation to the exteriorized phantom as it does to the interiorized, physically alive, being. Suppose, for example, that your physical body were to drop off, die, this very instant. You would be in the astral, still unchanged, not as a superintelligent being, but retaining your identical mentality as before, no more, no less. And this is one great point to remember: the physical is but non-intelligent material, and is like a cloak to the astral phantom. It is logical to suppose that, at birth, the astral body, the ego, was brought into being by the omnipotent intelligence which is, was, and always will be, while the conscious mind of this body was in the form of a blank, ready to receive impressions, learn and grow. It matters not at what stage of life we may die, our total consciousness, at the end of earthly existence, is the total we possess, after physical expiration. My first conscious astral projection holding the fact firmly in mind that the astral member is the real, live self, and that the physical is but a sort of shell, we will now turn our attention to what actually occurs when astral projection takes place. I shall describe the very first conscious projection I ever experienced. Realize, however, that all experiences are not alike, and that if, by following the laws of the art, which will be summed up later, you succeed in projecting, what you meet with may not tally in all respects with what I have given, and that proficiency is acquired by practice. At the time I was a youth of 12, thinking little of life's more serious problems and caring less. Although others in the family had studied along occult lines to some extent, I knew practically nothing concerning the higher life. To be sure, I had heard that we live after death, much as we do now, but that was the sum total of my knowledge on the subject, and even that was not a matter of thought with me. Through reading some books on spiritism, my mother, mostly urged by curiosity and the desire to determine whether it was fact or fiction, decided to visit the camp of the Mississippi Valley Spiritualists Association, at Clinton, Iowa. I accompanied her, as did my very small brother, and the occurrence which I shall now relate took place there. We retired at an early hour that evening, incidentally rooming in a house where lodged half a dozen widely known mediums. I dozed off to sleep about 10:30 o'clock, in the same natural manner as I had always done before, and slept for several hours. At length I realized that I was slowly awakening, yet I could not seem to drift back into slumber nor further arouse. In this bewildering stupor I knew, within me, that I existed somewhere, somehow, in a powerless, silent, dark and feelingless condition. Still I was conscious, a very unpleasant contemplation of being. I repeat again, I was aware that I existed, but where I could not seem to understand. My memory would not tell me. The stupefaction which one experiences when first arousing from the influence of an anesthetic is similar. I thought that I was awakening from natural sleep, in a natural manner, yet I could not proceed. There was but one thought dominating my mind. Where was I? Where was I? Gradually, it seemed an eon of time, but in reality it was but a short interval. I became more conscious of the fact that I was lying somewhere. These few half-clear thoughts brought relative thoughts, and shortly I seemed to know that I was reclining upon a bed, but still bewildered as to my exact location. I tried to move, to determine my whereabouts, only to find that I was powerless, as if I adhered to that on which I rested. Adhered, that is the exact sensation. If conscious at the beginning of exteriorization, one feels fairly glued down, stuck fast, in an immovable position. A peculiar fact about this phenomenon is that one can be conscious, yet unable to move. This condition I have called astral catalepsy, since there is no word yet coined to define it. Astral catalepsy will be discussed later on in more detail. Suffice it to say here that astral catalepsy can be present either with or without the functioning of the senses, and with or without consciousness, for astral catalepsy is direct subconscious control. Eventually the feeling of adhesion relaxed, but was replaced by another sensation equally unpleasant, that of floating. Occurring at the same time, my entire rigid body, I thought it was my physical, but it was my astral, commenced vibrating at a great rate of speed, in an up and down direction, and I could feel a tremendous pressure being exerted in the back of my head, in the medulla oblongata region. This pressure was very impressive, and came in regular spurts, the force of which seemed to pulsate my whole body. All this was to me like some queer nightmare, in total darkness, for of course I knew not what was taking place. Amid this pandemonium of bizarre sensations, floating, vibratory, zigzagging and head-pulling, I began to hear somewhat familiar and seemingly far-distant sounds. The sense of hearing was beginning to function. I tried to move, but still could not, as if I were in the grip of some cryptic and super-powerful directing force. No sooner had the sense of hearing come into being than that of sight followed. When able to see, I was more than astonished. No words could possibly explain my wonderment. I was floating. I was floating in the very air, rigidly horizontal, a few feet above the bed. The room, my exact location, was now comprehended. Things seemed hazy at first, but were becoming clearer. I knew well where I was, yet could not account for my strange behavior. Slowly, still zigzagging with the strong pressure in the back of my head, I was moving toward the ceiling, all the while horizontal and powerless. I believed naturally that this was my physical body, as I had always known it, but that it had mysteriously begun to defy gravity. It was too unnatural for me to understand, yet too real to deny, for, being conscious, being able to see, I could not question my sanity. Involuntarily, at about 6 feet above the bed, as if the movement had been conducted by an invisible force present in the very air, I was upright from the horizontal position to the perpendicular, and placed standing upon the floor of the room. There I stood for what seemed to me about 2 minutes, still powerless to move of my own accord, and staring straight ahead. I was still astrally cataleptic. Then the controlling force relaxed. I felt free, noticing only the tension in the back of my head. I took a step, when the pressure increased for an interval and threw my body out at an acute angle. I managed to turn around. There were two of me. I was beginning to believe myself insane. There was another me lying quietly upon the bed. It was difficult to convince myself that this was real, but consciousness would not allow me to doubt what I saw. My two identical bodies were joined by means of an elastic-like cable, one end of which was fastened to the medulla oblongata region of the astral counterpart, while the other end centered between the eyes of the physical counterpart. This cable extended across the space of probably 6 feet which separated us. All this time I was having difficulty in keeping my balance, swaying first to one side, then to the other. Ignorant of the true significance of my condition, my first thought, on seeing this spectacle, was that I had died during sleep. I did not know at that time that death comes only with the severing of the elastic-like cable. I made my way, struggling under the magnetic pull of the cord, to where the consanguineous earthly beings lay asleep in another room, hoping to awaken them and let them know of this awful plight. I attempted to open the door, but found myself passing through it. Another miracle to my already astonished mind. Going from one room to another, I tried fervently to arouse the sleeping occupants of the house. I clutched at them, called to them, tried to shake them, but my hands passed through them as though they were but vapors. I started to cry. I wanted them to see me, but they could not even feel my presence. All of my senses seemed normal, save that of touch. I could not make touchable contact with things as formerly. An automobile passed by the house, I could see it and hear it plainly. After a while the clock struck 2 and, looking, I saw it registering that hour. I began to prowl about the place, filled with the anxiety that morning would come and that then those sleepers would awaken and see me. As I recall it, I prowled about in the different rooms for perhaps 15 minutes, when I noticed a pronounced increase in the resistance of the cable. It was pulling with a stronger and stronger tug. I began to zigzag again under this force, and found presently that I was being pulled backward toward my physical body. Again I found myself powerless to move. Again I was in the grip of a tremendous, unseen, directing power. I was cataleptic and was resuming the horizontal position, directly over the bed. It was the reverse procedure of that which I had experienced while rising from the bed. Slowly the phantom lowered, vibrating again as it did so, then it dropped suddenly, coinciding with the physical counterpart once more. At this moment of coincidence, every muscle in the physical jerked, and a penetrating pain, as if I had been split open from head to foot, shot through me. I was physically alive again, filled with awe, as amazed as fearful, and I had been conscious throughout the entire occurrence. Since the adventure I have just related took place, I have experienced hundreds of other projections, with countless deviations from the given sensations, but with the corporal movement always clinging to the same route as that which I have described. Although repetition naturally brings about greater perfection, this is probably one of the most unusual first projections on record, so far as consciousness is concerned, eclipsing in its clarity many of the best efforts of adept mediums. While it is my personal opinion that I naturally possess a hidden power to project the inner being from my body, I also credit the extraordinariness of this first conscious exteriorization to the fact that several remarkable mediums slept in rooms adjacent to the one which I occupied. It is a fact, as most students of the occult understand, that a line of force can be established between persons for the benefit of another person. I shall touch upon this point later, inasmuch as it concerns this phenomenon. I have purposely omitted many details, in drawing a picture of this first projection, which will be fully covered as we go more deeply into the study. A long story in itself could be told of astral plane life, earthly relativity, association of phantoms, etc., yet no disclosure capable of being consigned to pen and ink could ever do justice to it all. So I shall refrain from delving into this department now, my purpose being to give a more analytic presentation of the phenomenon of astral exteriorization, and how it is produced. About the first hot shot that the skeptic, or even delvers into the supernormal, will give the conscious projector, is that he, the projector, did not leave his physical body at all, and that what he supposed happened was but a dream which was indelibly registered in his memory. There is only one answer to this ridiculous supposition. If a person does not know when he is conscious, then indeed he should be submitted to a sanity test. The doubter will say, now, you could have been dreaming all this. In your dream you would not know you were not fully conscious. This is reverse reasoning. In a dream a man may not know that he is unconscious, but when he is conscious he does know positively that he is not dreaming. Why? Simply because we have a distinct understanding of both present and past, when conscious. So do not form the idea that conscious astral projection is but a dream reminiscence. Now let us go on. From what has gone before, we now have a fair mental picture of an astral body projection, wherein consciousness participated from the very commencement to the very finest asterisk of the process. It is, however, not always that such is the case, this being the exceptional and not the commonly met with occurrence. Consciousness, in fact, may interpose at any time, or at any place, or in any position during the process. It may be interspersed with unconsciousness, or it may never enter into the act at all. As a rule, when consciousness does intervene, it makes its debut after the body has already separated, and is walking about, totally unaware of the fact up to the time of awakening. Incidentally, this being the most common time and place for the intervention of consciousness, it is also the most desirable, for thus the preliminary and disagreeable stages, spoken of in the foregoing account, are eliminated from the subject's consciousness. The elementary stages, the subconsciously controlled catalepsy, zigzagging and floating, are not pleasant to experience consciously, although one soon becomes hardened to them. Nevertheless, these preliminary activities always do take place, providing, of course, that the exteriorization occurs with the physical entranced in a lying or horizontal position when the subject is unconscious. Chapter 2. Mention was made of astral catalepsy, and as this condition is the cause of many different phenomena attributed to other sources, it will be well to understand it more thoroughly. We have all heard of catalepsy. Webster defines it as a sudden suspension of sensation and volition, with muscular rigidity. That is what it is when the astral body is in coincidence with the physical, yet catalepsy is subconscious control of the astral body, and can exist apart from the physical organism, as was shown in the above-quoted experience. Under catalepsy, the astral body is set, unyielding to form, rigid one might say, not unlike the physical body during cataleptic rigidity. When a person is physically cataleptic, he is in that condition because he is astrally cataleptic. Most of us have seen demonstrations in hypnotism, where a subject, under cataleptic rigidity, is suspended, horizontally, by his heels and head, while huge boulders are placed upon the center of his body and smashed into bits with a sledgehammer. It is catalepsy of the astral body which produces physical catalepsy. With the phantom once exteriorized and powerless, under catalepsy, the subconscious can maneuver it as it pleases. This is an example of the wisdom of the superintelligence. All of us know how difficult it is to lift a limpid, living body to the upright position, and how easy it is if the body be resistless and stiff. The subconscious, it seems, makes use of this law. Even though the astral body be cataleptically controlled, the conscious mind can function, or partially function, but usually it does not function until the spell is removed. Astral catalepsy reigns from the beginning of exteriorization until it progresses to that point where the phantom is in the vertical or standing position. It is not unusual for the phantom to stand there for some time before being liberated. Some projectors get only to this point, and never become free, interiorizing again, all the time in a cataleptic condition. When such is the case, the body will always be unstable, swaying to and fro, from side to side, forward and backward. This is really an incompleted projection. A completed projection could not be considered so unless the phantom were liberated from catalepsy. The projection of the astral body in the interiorization movement of a complete projection, catalepsy comes into being again at the time when the body is ready to transit from the vertical to the horizontal. Types of projections. There are three kinds of projection which may be classified as conscious, partially conscious, unconscious. Under the latter classification, unconscious, there are two distinct forms of the phenomenon. First, emotive, second, somnambulistic. Emotive unconscious astral projection is simply unconscious astral catalepsy in the perpendicular or standing position. It is a frequent happening for the projector to stand in this manner, as I have shown in the preceding paragraphs. Just as, under the unconscious classification, there are two kinds of phenomena, emotive and motive, somnambulistic, there are likewise emotive and motive types of conscious projection. The only difference between the unconscious motive and emotive types, and the conscious motive and emotive types, is that, in the latter, the subject is awake. Obviously, the emotive type always precedes, and may develop into, the motive. Astral somnambulism. Just as there is somnambulism, commonly called sleepwalking, of the physical being, there are also persons who, while asleep, walk about in the astral body. This I have termed astral somnambulism. It is a state of unconscious projection more advanced than the unconscious, emotive state. It is the state where the phantom is liberated from catalepsy, but remains unconscious, and is far more common than is generally supposed. During sleep, many mediums travel in the astral body, but never become conscious. While doing so, consequently they never realize the fact. I stated formerly that when consciousness does intervene, it comes, in most cases, while the subject is either standing cataleptic or is astrally somnambulating. It has been my most common experience to gain consciousness and find myself astrally somnambulating. In astral somnambulism, just as in physical somnambulism, the subconscious mind controls the meandering body. Conscious interruptions during astral somnambulism at scattered intervals. Throughout astral somnambulism, the dormant, conscious mind may become active for an infinitesimally short time, or partially conscious for a longer or shorter time. When the intermittent flashes of awareness occur, they register muddled and haphazard scenes, sounds, etc., and the next day the subject may recall a jumble of phantasmal recollections. There are innumerable different variations of interrupted somnambulism. A perfect or imperfect working of the senses, intermingled with countless degrees of consciousness, will naturally bring about a registration upon the memory, in exact accordance with the complications. It is obvious that the nearer normal is the functioning of the senses, and the nearer normal the state of consciousness, the nearer true will be the recollections. Perhaps you have visited an entirely unfamiliar place, and upon viewing it have had faint or conglomerated recollections of having been in that very spot before. Yet you knew you had not been there. It is possible that you could have been there in a state of interrupted, astral somnambulism. The future, contemplating, subconscious mind sometimes projects the astral body to places which the subject, later, visits in the physical. Far more often, however, it is clairvoyant vision, and not projection, that does this. Conscious interruptions, during astral projection, are by no means confined to the somnambulating state, for they can take place while in the unconscious, emotive stage too. It is easily seen that if the body be somnambulating while the flashes of consciousness are participating, it will be passing through a changing environment, which will tend to bemuddle the registration upon the memory. While, if the body be in the emotive condition, the registration will be more single and specific. Not all that we call dreams are caused by conscious interruptions, although some of them are. I will point out later the relation of astral projection to dreams. Distant point projection. Another distinct form of the phenomenon being discussed is distant point projection. The astral body separates from its physical counterpart, and travels to some faraway place during the state of unconsciousness, although sometimes becoming conscious, for an interval, at that place. Usually the medium, while awake, instructs his subconscious to send him to the remote place where he wishes to go, so that he may witness the scenes and events which are happening there. Trance intervenes. On awakening again, he is aware of having been at the desired place, but scarcely ever has any recollection of having made the trip. In such a case, the actual distance covered is not recalled, because the flight is seemingly made with the speed of light, and is always unconscious. Obviously, the actual distance and the creations which it contains are not consciously recorded in the projector's consciousness. There are records of distant point projectors who have been seen in the astral body, far removed from the physical, by others, mediumistically inclined. No less an authority than William T. Stead has told of a lady of his personal acquaintance who was especially gifted with the ability to project afar and then materialize. She became a source of great worry and distress to her friends, for she would pay them unexpected visits, materialize and frighten them. Naturally they supposed that she must have died and that this was her ghost. The occurrences, however, became so frequent that her friends finally became familiar with the phenomenon and viewed it with great interest and wonder. Many so-called distant point projections are probably not projections at all, as a matter of fact, but are subconscious creations of the medium's own, as the subconscious alone can vision a distant point scene, not unlike that which the conscious astral body would see, if there. Of distant point vision, one writer has said, the view of a distant scene obtained in this way is in many ways not unlike that seen through a telescope. Human figures usually appear very small, like those upon a distant stage, but in spite of their diminutive size they are clear, as though they were close by. Sometimes it is possible by this means to hear what is said as well as to see what is done, but as in the majority of cases this does not happen, we must consider it rather as the manifestation of an additional power than as a necessary corollary of the faculty of sight. It will be observed that, in cases of this kind, the clairvoyant does not actually leave his physical body at all, he simply manufactures for himself and uses a kind of psychic telescope. Consequently, he has the use of his physical powers while he is examining the distant scene. For example, his voice usually describes what he sees, even while he is in the act of making the observation. The phantom's three moving speeds. There are three different velocities at which the phantom travels. First, the natural or normal speed, which is in use when the subject is conscious and free to move about in his immediate environment, or while he is in a state of astral somnambulism. He merely walks. Second, the intermediate speed, in which the subject moves along without effort, faster than the normal speed, but not fast enough to cause loss of perception. When this takes place, one does not appear to be moving, but everything seems to be coming toward him, through him, passing him, just as the fields and fences seem to speed backward when one rides in a fast train. The phantom does not seem to pass through the door seems to pass through the phantom. Streaks of light, scintillations, are thrown off by the astral body and extend backward about 2 feet as it moves along at this intermediate speed. These scintillations appear phosphorescent, the color of the astral body, and trail behind it in the same manner that scintillations trail behind a shooting star. This intermediate speed enables the subject to cover considerable distances rapidly, without loss of consciousness. Third is the supernormal traveling velocity, a speed beyond comprehension. It always occurs when the subject is unconscious, and is in play when the phantom is moving back and forth over great distances. It would be utterly impossible to move across a vast area at such speed and realize the distance, for the conscious mind is too slow in its thinking, and before it could formulate one single thought the objective would already be reached. What I have just said concerning the three speeds at which the projected astral body moves is true also of permanently separated astral beings, the dead. It has been the contention of some that every transit of the projected astral body always takes place with superspeed. This is true only when the phantom is moving toward a very distant place. On other occasions the intermediate traveling speed may be used, and still at other times the free phantom behaves in a manner befitting its physically alive self, with all its own peculiarities of stride, swing and carriage. Morbidity, an incentive to projection. The supposition should not be made that astral projection occurs only during natural sleep. It may take place when the subject is in practically any state of unconsciousness. In times of sickness, especially that sort of sickness which is stayed or sedative, astral projection can and often does take place. It is a fact that the more weakened, languid and enervated the physical becomes, the more easily the astral member detaches itself from it, for at such times less material resistance is brought to bear against the inner workings which prompt the separation. Undoubtedly, at the time of death, many people are already erect in the astral body before the final breath of the physical body is taken, although they may not be conscious of the fact. It is my firm belief that physical debility is an incentive to most kinds of mediumship, for the less material coordination a person has, the less material will be the influences to overcome by the subconscious resources. This morbidity factor is also true of astral projection. In making this statement I am aware that it is contrary to the ideas of many prominent authorities. Popular opinion seems to have it that perfect material coordination, health, is an essential requisite to the production of the phenomenon of astral projection, but I hope to discredit this belief by quoting experiences, and pointing out specific reasons for believing that the contrary is true. If I do disagree with others as to what produces, assists, and influences projection of the astral body, I do so because of my own experience with this phase. So, I can only say that if my disagreeing contemporaries are right in their claims, then I am an exception. I shall, however, return to this morbidity question later. Exteriorization may be induced by hypnotism and mesmerism. It is a significant fact that Andrew Jackson Davis, the seer of Poughkeepsie, and one of the world's greatest, had astral projection induced at an early age by a mesmerist, William Livingston. Davis's first out-of-the-body experience was that of moving through the air in a spiral direction. Instantaneous astral exteriorization, a violent blow, especially upon the head, or any extreme shock, wherein unconsciousness ensues as a consequence, is another common cause of instantaneous astral projection. If you wish to try a simple formula for instantaneous astral projection, allow some friend, or preferably some enemy, to strike you over the head with a baseball bat, a percussive blow. This is about the most simple method, but since you might not be conscious, while exteriorized, it might perhaps be best to follow some of the formulae which will be given later. To speak seriously, however, it is true that a vigorous blow or jolt will often cause a speedy and ephemeral separation, whether the victim be aware of it or not. An ephemeral conscious projection experience. A neighbor, a man of 70, whose present home is within sight of where I write this account, related an event to me which was purely a case of ephemeral and instantaneous astral projection of the conscious type. He had hitched his team, one wintry day, and gone into the country after a load of firewood. On his return, he was sitting atop the loaded sleigh. A light snow was falling. Without warning, a hunter, who happened to be near the road, discharged his gun at a rabbit. The horses jumped, jerking the sleigh and throwing the driver to the ground headfirst. He said, when he told me of the accident, that no sooner had he landed upon the ground than he was conscious of standing up and seeing another himself lying motionless near the road, face down in the snow. He saw the snow falling all about, saw the steam rising from the horses, saw the hunter running toward him. All this was very exact, but his great bemuddlement was that there were two of him, for he believed at the time that he was observing all that occurred from another physical body. As the hunter came near, things seemed to grow dim. The next conscious impression he had was of finding himself upon the ground, with the hunter trying to revive him. What he had seen from his astral body was so real that he could not believe that there were not two physical bodies, and he even went so far as to look for tracks in the snow, in the place where he knew he had been standing. Instantaneous projection is not uncommon. Such a manifestation as this not only shows how unchanged the individual is, when apart from his physical body, in everything but substance and composition, but it also demonstrates that the astral body is a component part, the very self, of earthly existence, that it is the seat of the conscious mind and is not created by the will of the individual. Many people have undergone more or less similar experiences, but, being ignorant of just what took place, have discarded it as some unexplainable or peculiar caper of the physical self. The duration of such an instantaneous projection depends upon the severity of the concussion causing it. If the blow or shock be violent, a longer interval of unconsciousness results than if it is less vigorous. It may easily be seen that the more prolonged the unconsciousness, the longer lived could be the exteriorization. Ephemeral coma could only allow ephemeral projection, and many times the duration of exteriorization is but a fraction of a second. In truth, exteriorization and interiorization of the astral body can take place with such speed that the subject does not even realize that he was out of his physical body at all, having only felt dazed for an instant, and, perhaps, during that instant, he believed that he had advanced about a foot beyond the spot where he was actually standing. Probably everyone has at some time in his life encountered a jolt that made him see stars, as the saying goes. The glow seen is an aura, and is visible for an instant as the two bodies coincide. This same glow, in greater expanse, can be seen for a longer time, when the projection is conscious, i.e. at the beginning of a prolonged separation. The astral phantom is so much our very self that we do not realize how bound up in it we are, we do not seem to comprehend that we are using it this very moment. It is our life, this astral body, and when it permanently severs from the physical body, that physical is of no account. I wish I could convince you, reader, that this phantomous body is not a new entity, which you will acquire in the future. It is the you of the present, your consciousness, your animation. Without the astral body, your physical anatomy would be but a crude mass of insensible material, lying inert in the power of gravity. This phantom becomes accustomed to the habits it has formed by being coincident with, or merged into, the physical, and made to conform to the laws applying to the physical. When something unusual or unnatural occurs to upset the harmony of the physical, a shock, a jolt, a broken habit, an intense unappeased desire, sickness, in fact, anything which would cause a lack of perfect material coordination, there is always a jar to the astral. Collision may cause astral exteriorization. Concussion to the extent of injury is not the only way in which an instantaneous separation is often produced, for even an unexpected shake or jar of the physical will sometimes throw the phantom out of coincidence. Many are they who marvel at the thought that astral separation can be accomplished, yet I dare say almost everyone has already had this very thing occur to himself in some mild form, whether he knows it or not. And the extensive form of projection is but a continuance of the lesser. The following are 2 axioms appropriate to this simple type of astral detachment. 1. A sudden force unexpectedly exerted against the body, while it is moving in a given direction, will not instantly interrupt the astral, and the latter will continue for an instant to move in the given direction, bringing itself momentarily out of coincidence. 2. A material body, moving in a given direction, if suddenly and unexpectedly colliding with the inert body, will cause the physical member to move slightly out of coincidence in the given direction. The astral, an instant later, moves ahead into the physical. It must be remembered that this is but a short-lived and short-distance separation, and takes place with lightning speed, almost too swift for the subject experiencing it to become unconscious, although he does feel a spurt of bewilderment as it occurs. Again, at such a time, one may feel as if he were about to rise into the air, or may feel a breathtaking sensation in the pit of the stomach. In either case, the collision must be unexpected, sudden, and forceful enough to interrupt the normal momentum of the moving mass. When the automobile stops quickly, throwing the occupants vigorously and unexpectedly forward, it is the ephemeral disharmony of the 2 bodies, astral and physical, which causes the breathtaking sensation. This may seem too commonplace to be true. If so, it is because our astral self is so much a part of us that we do not recognize the fact we do not know ourselves. A projection caused by a MIS step. Here is an example of how an unexpected jar will throw the phantom out of coincidence. One night, a few years ago, I was coming down the stairs of my home. I had been sleeping, and was still quite drowsy. There were 15 steps, and I had trodden up and down them hundreds of times, having lived in the house all my life. Just why I do not know, but as I reached the bottom step I tried to take 1 step more. Many of us have done this, and the impetus jarred me vigorously. A breathtaking sensation shot through the pit of my stomach, and even before the physical drop to the floor, I found myself projected from it, in a perfectly conscious state. And I don't mean that I thought I was conscious, I mean that I was conscious. I both saw the physical mechanism fall to the floor and also felt it fall, while standing several feet from it. Let me analyze this, and see what actually happened, for by doing so we shall discover the fundamental law of astral projection. The fundamental law of astral projection. It must be understood that it is not the conscious mind which causes projection, but it is the subconscious will. We can walk by conscious effort, but we usually walk unconsciously, under subconscious will. It is when the body is under subconscious motivation, and an unexpected barrier intercepts the physical, that the astral body keeps on moving in the given direction for a moment. If propulsion were conscious, this would not happen. In descending the stairs, had I been stepping consciously, the misstep would have been avoided. But the descent was unconscious, under the control of the subconscious will, and when the barrier, floor, interrupted the physical, the subconscious will was still under the inclination to descend, and actually moved the astral body out of coincidence. This same principle applies to separation brought about by a moving force colliding with an inert body. The inert body stands under subconscious will. When the colliding force meets the physical, the subconscious will is under the inclination to remain in its given position until the conscious moves it. Thus, the phantom stands while the material is thrown out of coincidence. By analyzing the cause of instantaneous or insignificant separation, the following conclusions become self-evident. 1. The body, coinciding bodies, can move unconsciously. 2. The body can move unconsciously when the conscious mind is functioning. 3. The body can move unconsciously when the conscious mind is not functioning, somnambulism. 4. When the body moves unconsciously, it is the subconscious will which moves it. Which brings us to the bedrock rule of astral projection. If the subconscious will becomes possessed of the idea to move the body, coinciding bodies, and the physical counterpart is incapacitated, the subconscious will moves the astral body independent of the physical. Intentional and unintentional projection both result from the same causes. Since this is the fundamental law of projection, the question arises, how can the subconscious will be voluntarily incited to motivate, while the physical is incapacitated, or extremely passive? This is not an easy thing to do, you will say. And it is not an effect which can be brought about by a mere thought or half-hearted trial, although there are positive, certain methods which can accomplish this. If we locate the causes which promote unintentional projection of the astral body, and put these causes to work intentionally, for the purpose of projection, then is there any reason why it cannot be brought about at will? All my early exteriorizations were accidental, unintentional. At first, I believed that somehow I possessed some unnatural power, which others lacked, but, by making a lengthy study of the manifestations as they occurred, and noting with care all the peculiarities encountered, I eventually was able to determine the causes which brought about the seeming miracle. Putting these causes into being, with astral projection in mind, I succeeded in producing the phenomenon at will, long before I ever read one word on the subject from the books of others. At present I shall not delve deeply into these causes, but will discuss them later on, as I wish, first, to give some more general information concerning the subject. It will not be out of place, however, to state here that suppressed desire is by far the greatest single factor inciting unintentional projection. We can see how determined the subconscious will becomes, once it is stimulated into activity. When you start walking, you would walk and walk and walk, were it not for your conscious mind stopping you. And, when you are standing, you would stand and stand and stand, did not your conscious mind start you moving. Now, how does suppressed desire possess the subconscious will to motivate the body? While conscious, you desire something. You do not appease that desire. You would appease it, but there is some obstacle in your way. So you go on desiring, 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 all the while tensing the subconscious will. The stress grows so great that you are at war with yourself. You can feel the subconscious trying to accomplish that which you want. It would do so instantly, could it but get the best of your conscious mind. At this point the subconscious will is all set to move, the minute you try to hinder it no more. So, while you sleep, the conscious mind can no longer tell the subconscious will no, and the subconscious will tries to project the body to the spot desired. Now, if the sleeping subject were physically incapacitated, the astral body would be projected. Meaning of physical incapacity. What do I mean, physically incapacitated? Simply that the physical body is not in an active enough condition to respond, the instant the subconscious will begins to move. As a rule, during sleep, the body is not in the same active condition which it is while awake. The heart is beating more slowly, and the whole mechanism is below the level which it attains when normally awake. If the subject is morbid, the physical mechanism will not respond at once, which points more convincingly to the contention made, that, the weaker the subject, the more easily can the separation take place, providing the sickness be of a sedative nature. In The Psychology of Dreams, Walsh says, once sleep has actually begun, certain changes take place in the physical structure. The heart and respiratory rates become slower, less forcible, there is a fall in blood pressure, a warmth of the skin, an increased production of sweat. The stomach, intestines, kidneys, liver, and other organs are active, though at a lessened pace. Since the amount of work required by the physical structures is much less than when awake, these parts are enabled to rest. Since repair exceeds waste, the various structures are sufficiently recuperated after a due amount of sleep. So by a physically incapacitated is meant a condition of unusual passivity, whether the subject be bedbound through illness, or soundly sleeping, so that he will not become instantly active when the subconscious will becomes possessed to move the body. Consider the somnambulist. While he sleeps, the subconscious will become possessed to move the body, usually through suppressed desire. The sleeper rises from his bed and walks about in coincidence, because his physical body is not inactive enough, not incapacitated, to be behind time, when the subconscious will started the movement, whereas, if he had been unusually passive, the astral body would have moved out of the physical, and he would have been in a state of astral somnambulism. Where and what is the conscious mind? What is the composition of the conscious mind? Where does it exist? Where is the conscious mind, when it is not conscious? These are questions which cannot be answered by the most sagacious of occult philosophers, and they no doubt always will remain but material for speculation. We know not even the bounds, the nature or the locality of the conscious mind. Still, we know we are using the mind, and that it, apparently, becomes unconscious. Yet, where is it, during unconsciousness? That is the great question. It seems almost as ridiculous to believe that the conscious mind can instantly evaporate into nothing, as coma intervenes, as to believe that it is in existence during the interval of coma, without our being aware of the fact. Now, if it were possible for the conscious mind to become nothing, during the interval of coma, how could it recreate itself at the end of that interval, with duplicate perfection, from nothing? And, on the other hand, if it be still in existence, throughout the oblivious period, how can we account for the fact that we are not conscious at the place where consciousness exists? And where does consciousness exist? The more one probes into this riddle, the more probing will become necessary. To dwell upon it for a moment should convince even the most hopeless egotist that he does not know himself very well after all. That the mind is self-evident, but what becomes of it during coma remains unfathomable. Some contend that it is the senses, and not the conscious mind, which makes the exit, that without sense functioning there would be no consciousness. But can the nature of the senses be defined any more than the conscious mind can be defined? What are the senses? How do they work? What makes sensibility? Where is sensibility, during unconsciousness? Attempting to solve one mystery by substituting another only results in having more mysteries to solve. Others are of the opinion that, when coma intervenes, the conscious mind is exteriorized in the astral body, therefore one is unconscious. But how is it that the subject is not always aware of being exteriorized in the astral body, at every intervention of oblivion, if this were true? How is it that we ever sleep? Where is the somnambulist's conscious mind? There can be but one reply: we do not know. The best that can be done is to compare the conscious mind, while sleep is reigning, to a prisoner locked fast in a vault, unable to get out until the door is opened. If we could but determine what opens and closes the door of consciousness, then we could also determine why some astral projections result in consciousness, and some do not. And, further, we might discover a means by which the unconsciously projected phantom could always be made conscious, instead of the present hit-and-miss experiences. The hypnagogic state, neurosis, and sleep. When consciousness is present from the very beginning of an exteriorization, the etheric body aggression begins in the hypnagogic state, which is the borderland between the conscious and the unconscious. Of the hypnagogic state, Walsh says, "Before going to sleep we must pass through an unnoticed stage of half-waking, half-sleeping, termed the hypnagogic state. We must pass through a similar stage before we awaken. Usually the hypnagogic state lasts but a few seconds, but it may be prolonged for as much as 15 minutes. It is apt to be longer when passing from the sleeping to the waking state, than the reverse. As sleep is coming on, the sensation of falling may be experienced. This is occasioned by the general relaxation of the muscular system, which occurs at this time. Should a person be much disturbed, while in the hypnagogic state, the normal transition from waking to sleeping, or the reverse, may be markedly disordered. Consciousness may fully awaken, but the motor centers may awaken more slowly. This causes a temporary paralysis of the limbs, speech, and consequently an inability to move or talk. This form of paralysis, called a nocturnal paralysis by some writers, the present writer contends that it is astral catalepsy, may occur after a natural awaking. As a rule, the paralysis lasts but a short time. Should it be prolonged, it excites much mental disquiet. Fatigue, nervousness, general ill health may provoke it. This only strengthens my belief that lack of material coordination is a favorable factor in projection. The etheric body is in catalepsy, inclined to move slightly out of the physical. Why does fatigue, nervousness, general ill health provoke this so-called paralysis? Because there is a deficiency of neuric energy centered in the bodies. In fact, that is exactly what nervousness is: inability to hold the energy within the bounds of the physical. Energy is cosmic, omnipresent. It can flow into and out of the etheric counterpart, which is a veritable condenser of that energy. Now, I have found that when the etheric body moves slightly out of coincidence, it becomes more of a magnet to the universal energy than when in coincidence. Thus, in the person of ill health, the paralysis experienced is but astral catalepsy, which is always the first state of exteriorization, caused by the subconscious being under the inclination to discoincide the bodies, so that the etheric condenser may charge more freely. This occurrence takes place with millions of people every night, yet it is only when consciousness is still in play that they ever. For a detailed study of hypnagogic phenomena, see the article by F. E. Erleening, Proceedings, SPR, Volume 35, pp 287-411, and the bibliography therein contained. H.C. experience the paralysis or catalepsy. What is thought to be an aura resting above sleepers and seen by seers, is in reality the etheric body, out of coincidence a few inches. As a rule, in normal persons, consciousness is lost before this phenomenon begins. It is not difficult to understand that, if consciousness is desired throughout a complete projection, the hypnagogic state is the ideal place for the aggression to begin. Catalepsy with consciousness is more apt to occur in passing from sleeping to waking than the reverse. Trial will prove convincingly that, if consciousness begins to function a little too strongly, after the subconscious has effected a slight separation, on entering sleep, the phantom is more apt to coincide again than it would be in a similar condition when waking from sleep. In other words, most projections will be more successful, consciously, if they begin in the hypnagogic state, when coming out of sleep. When one awakens and finds himself powerless in astral catalepsy, called nocturnal paralysis, the very first thing he usually does is to become alarmed. He wishes to become physically active again, and struggles within himself to be free. This is nothing short of a conscious suggestion to the subconscious will, and that will soon respond. If this discomposure could be eliminated, and the subject would keep emotionally calm, the suggestion of becoming physically active would not be given to the subconscious control. Then, if the subject would think of rising up, toward the ceiling, and suggest that he float in the very air above him, the subconscious will would continue the exteriorizing process, and a completely conscious and extensive projection would result. At such a time, the physical body is greatly incapacitated. The subconscious will already has the astral entity in its power. It is merely a matter of what suggestion is given to that will which determines whether the phantom will continue to move out or will move back into coincidence again. It is exactly the same as walking. Once you are in motion, the subconscious will is in control, but the moment you give a conscious suggestion that you will stop, you stop. When you are consciously in astral catalepsy, if you then suggest that you wish to become physically active again, that is what will result. Perhaps you will reply to this as a friend of mine did, by saying, "I'd like to see the fellow who wouldn't get excited on awaking and finding himself paralyzed." Yet I have done this, and I wager that anyone can bring about an extensive, conscious projection if he keeps emotionally calm and gives the right suggestions when he does awaken, and finds himself cataleptic. He couldn't help but do it. It is the very law. It is the same law we use every day of our lives when we walk about, directing the power that does the walking by conscious suggestion. To be sure, it is no easy matter for one to prevent himself from becoming emotional at the supernormal, especially when he himself is in the grip of it, but, like all things supernormal, conscious projection soon loses its awe, as one becomes more accustomed to it. Sensation and emotion at different stages of exteriorization. The place to which the phantom has progressed when consciousness comes, if it does, will naturally determine the first conception or sensation the subject will experience. At different degrees of separation, different sensations are produced. If consciousness makes its first meager appearance in the hypnagogic state, and the subconscious will is under projection inclination, the very first conception is that one exists somewhere. If slight awareness comes a second or two later, glued down, or catalepsy, will be the first impression. If, still an instant later, floating, next, trembling, zigzagging, etc. It is the action, or place of progression of the phantom which determines what the first conscious thought will be. And this very first thought is of vital importance. It is then that one must remain calm and suggest uprising. Most conscious projections are ruined at the outset merely because the action of the phantom brings about an unpleasant sensation, which in turn causes emotion. The following rule may well be applied to this phenomenon: emotions of unpleasantness, alarm, fear, etc., are veritable suggestions to the subconscious will that the subject wishes to be normal, or physically correct. Thus the first thought will influence the immediately succeeding or relative thoughts, and if the activity is of a nature to cause emotion, the desire to become physically normal will at once follow, and be a suggestion to the subconscious will to that effect. Conscious projection is more liable to take place just as the first conscious thought makes its appearance, before the phantom moves into the air, or after it is extensively projected and is upright, either emotive or somnambulating. The stages between are more promotive of unpleasant emotion. When one becomes trained, and has practiced the phase, the instant he has his first conscious thought, he will instinctively associate it with rising into the air, instead of becoming uneasy, and will use every conscious effort to keep himself calm throughout what is about to happen. It is astonishing how really easy this is to do after it has been accomplished once. It is like a hesitating man, about to take an aeroplane ride. Should he suddenly awake and find himself in the takeoff, he would immediately say, "Let her go. This is going to feel funny, but here goes." It may seem paradoxical that the action of the phantom will affect the emotions, and that the emotions will affect the action of the phantom. However, such is the case. It also may seem contrary to received opinion that nervousness is a factor favorable to detachment, and that the emotions must be calm. Still, this too is true. However, were it not for such unnatural conditions involved in the production of projection, everyone would be doing it. Conscious astral projection never will be accomplished by anyone who cannot control his emotions. Chapter 3. Believe that this is the first time that any writer has ever definitely declared that the subconscious will eject the phantom in a specific route, and that the position of the physical body at the time of ejection invariably governs the direction in which the two doubles will move out of it. When the body is in a lying down position, or horizontally at rest, the astral advances from the body in an upward direction, rigid, remaining strictly parallel to the material body. As a rule, all parts of the two bodies separate simultaneously. The etheric member shakes throughout its entire length, vibrates, more properly describes it, not from side to side, but upward and downward. Usually the progress upward in this manner is slow, the astral body advancing only an inch or so at a time, and many times falling back again. After approximately 1 foot of separation it begins to zigzag, much like a snagged stick zigzags back and forth in the current of a stream. To become conscious at this spot will almost always excite the emotions and interiorize the phantom, until one becomes accustomed to it. In this manner the astral body eventually reaches a height of anywhere from 3 feet to 6 feet above the shell. At this point the uprighting force begins to operate. The lower half, feet, begins to draw downward, while the upper half, head, moves upward, which brings the phantom to the vertical or standing position. It is as if there were a pivot through the center of the body. There are times when the subconscious control does not upright the phantom directly over the shell, but, after raising it to a height of about 5 feet, will begin to force it along in the air, still horizontal, for some distance, and then bring it down to the vertical. The trembling ceases as the uprighting begins, and the zigzagging becomes more of a side-to-side swaying. If the sense of sight be functioning, a variegated aura can be seen from the very beginning. This is always the route the phantom takes, when exteriorization takes place while the body is in the horizontal position. The entire process may occur quickly, or it may be prolonged. If exteriorization takes place when the physical body is in an upright position, it may readily be seen that the horizontal activity is automatically eliminated, for then the etheric member moves right out from the material body, already in a standing position. Astral exteriorization is not unlike another phenomenon, what has been termed the passing, at the time of death, insofar as the behavior of the phantom is concerned. The passing simply denotes the transition of the finer body from its coinciding position with the physical. While the astral body movements are alike in death and in exteriorization, there is one element present in the latter phenomenon which is absent in death, a vital line of force connecting the physical body with its astral counterpart. This line of force is called the astral cord or gastral cable, and in its presence lies the difference between deathly projection and projection which is not unto death. In death, as in astral projection, the phantom may not become conscious for some time. Some are said to become so quickly. Some exist for a while in the dream state. Others, it is claimed, remain unconscious for a long period of time. And some never even taste death, as Christ said, never even slumber. Picture someone, perhaps a soldier, walking straight ahead, consciously bent upon reaching a certain place. If, as he hastens along, something should instantly rend him asunder, say a flying missile, killing him instantly, the astral body would keep right on walking, ignorant of the fact, for the moment, that he was physically dead. This is given merely to show the relation which corporal position sustains to the astral body during their separation. Some symptoms of astral exteriorization. Perhaps you can now recall having experienced one or more of the elementary stages of astral projection, the adhered or glued down sensation, the sensation of floating, of whirling, of zigzagging, of uprising, jumps in the hypnagogic state, breathtaking sensation at pit of stomach, a feeling as if one's consciousness were getting out of one's head. These same things may have happened to you many times, when you were unaware of them. When you are conscious of them, the doctor will pass it off as nerves. It is easy to tell a patient that nerves cause such peculiar happenings, but telling him how nerves cause these happenings is a horse of another color. Nerves cause such peculiarities because the astral is not bound tightly in the physical. What is dizziness? It is a condition of looseness of the astral body. What loosens the astral body? Many things: a blow on the head, abnormal functioning of vital organs, a score of causes. Regardless of the cause, dizziness indicates that the astral body is not bound tightly to the physical. When dizzy, we stagger because the astral body is loose and half inclined to withdraw from the physical. Whirling will cause dizziness, since it loosens the astral body, and, in this connection, it is interesting to note that the Fakas often resort to whirling to accomplish astral exteriorization. An experience which is not altogether rare is that of waking at night, for an instant, and seeing a duplicate of oneself hovering about a foot above one. It lies in a horizontal position, and is trembling, as if resting on the air. It is gauzy-colored. A moment later we awake with a jump. In such a case, the etheric, I call the astrals etheric, not because I believe it is composed of ether, but because others who do believe this have given it that name, was about 1 foot out of coincidence. But you will say, I saw this from my physical body. And you did. But the conscious mind was not in the physical body. I will attempt to explain later how the senses can cut capers. The track of sight sensation came from the conscious mind in the body above you, where you really were, and traveled through the astral cable to the physical eye. Some other symptoms of astral exteriorization are catalepsy, coldness of body, falling and flying dreams, and head-thumping dreams. One may see lights, images, figures, hear sounds of various kinds, all the way from inarticulate noises to beautiful strains of music. Mr. Prescott Hall, in his work on astral projection, summarized his own experiences in this connection as follows: the most definite objects seen were a Greek profile and the head and shoulders of a Hindu in a turban. These were perfectly distinct. A brilliant red object. Third, large, round, blue lights. Fourth, a small blue and yellow light. Fifth, landscapes, sometimes of two tones and sometimes of natural colors. Sixth, luminous spaces or patches of mist or color, frequently outlines of persons, but showing no definite details. Seventh, irregular shaped figures of all kinds, white in color and usually seen in a patch of blue sky, or tissue paper figures. These were perhaps the rarest sights, and required the most effort to produce. The principal sounds heard were the following: a hissing or whistling, as of escaping steam, single musical notes, musical phrases, generally new to the hearer. Hymn tunes and other tunes, which were known. Harmonics, often very beautiful. Two or more notes, alternating in regular sequence. The sound of a bell or bells, sometimes in harmony. Metallic noises like the striking of an anvil. It is not unusual, at the beginning of a projection, to hear seemingly far distant sounds which sound familiar to the subject. Often it is as if someone, far away, were calling, in a musical voice. A very peculiar sensation is as if someone unseen were blowing in one's face. Again, it is as if some unseen fingertips touched one about the throat, mouth and nose, causing a tickling sensation. The astral cable. Nearly every student of spirit phenomena professes to know that the astral cord is an elastic-like structure, connecting the astral body with the physical, and this seems to be the extent of knowledge so far given to the world, concerning this schematic astral organism. Such ignorance is not difficult to account for. On the one hand is the psychic experimenter who, if not capable of projecting himself, can only form his conclusions from the statements of others. On the other hand, most persons who do project do not maintain consciousness clearly, if at all. Some become possessed of temporary awareness at a distance from the physical body, and still others are so absorbed in the wonders met with that the thought of investigating causes never enters into their minds at the time. It is estimated that about 15,000 persons now living see more or less on the astral plane, and that about 50 persons can go out into that plane at will. Many times, while consciously projected, I have succeeded in intimately examining and observing the peculiar action of the astral cable. It is a sort of sideshow mystery, participating in the main act called projection. This vital structure is composed, so far as I am able to see, of the same material, or essence, as the astral body itself. Its erratic action always made a very profound impression upon me, and at times I was almost led to believe that it actually was intelligent. Where it comes from, on the outgoing of the phantom, where it disappears, when the phantom coincides, are two deep mysteries for me to fathom. Its elasticity is far beyond the imagination, and is not comparable to any material object in its stretching qualities. The nearest one can come, when trying to form a conception of the astral cord, is to compare it to an elastic cable, yet such a comparison does anything but justice to this truly living organ. The astral cord always stretches from one body to the other, regardless of the space or distance between them. Cord activity range: the less space that lies between the two bodies, the greater is the thickness of the astral cable, the greater is its magnetic pull, and the more difficult to hold the stability of the phantom. When slightly out of coincidence, the cord is the diameter of a silver dollar. This is the maximum caliber of the cord itself, yet the aura surrounding it gives the impression to the eye that it is about 6 inches in thickness at this point. The diameter decreases in proportion to the increase of separation of the bodies, up to a given distance, where it is then at its minimum diameter, which it retains from there to infinity, its caliber then being about that of an ordinary sewing thread. From immediate separation to the distance when the astral cord assumes its minimum caliber, there is always much activity present in it. This distance is called the range of cord activity. I wished, naturally, to determine how far this range of cord activity extended, for it had an important bearing, I found, upon the projection of the astral body. So, the very first conscious projection I made thereafter, I noted with extreme care the spot I occupied, as the cord reached its minimum thickness. When physically active again, I took the tape and measured the range of cord activity, and found it to be 15 feet. For some time I thought that I had the distance calculated correctly, but when I again tried the experiment, to verify the first finding, I met with a different result. This time it was but 8 feet. It was clear, then, that the range of cord activity was variable, and, after dwelling for almost a year upon the matter, I eventually discovered why the range of cord activity varied. I noticed that, when I was not feeling as well as usual, the range of resistance, or cord activity, was less than when I was in better physical condition. Repetition only strengthened this discovery. And I say again that the more one searches into this phenomenon of astral projection, the more certain one will become that material coordination is a powerful, negative, influencing factor in the result. The more healthy the subject, the more energy is stored in the condenser, astral body, the stronger will be the flow of energy through the astral cable, if he succeeds in projecting at all, and the longer will be the cord activity range. The more energy that is condensed in the astral body, the tighter will that body be bound to the physical counterpart. The more enervated the individual becomes, the less energy is stored in the condenser, the less tie it has on the physical, and the shorter will be the range of cord activity. And if a person becomes weakened to a very great extent, the astral cannot remain in the physical at all, and moves out, sometimes permanently. Then the doctor says, he died because he didn't receive enough nourishment. So, it is obvious that the range of cord activity varies as the health of the projecting individual. A few inches of separation of the bodies, and the cable is about the size of a silver dollar, regardless of the condition of health, but the decrease in size is speedier in the case of the enervated individual. When in fair condition, physically, the cord decreases, according to the distance of separation, somewhat as follows: at a few inches of bodily separation, 1 3/4 inches, at 10 feet, 3/4 of an inch, resembling a piece of garden hose, at 15 feet, approximately, it might be at its minimum thickness, holding this size to infinity. It is in appearance of a whitish-gray color, and, when greatly extended, is not unlike a long, single strand of cobweb. From coincidence to the end of cord activity range, there is always a double action taking place in the cord, that is, as far as one's eyes can determine. Yet I dare say that there are many activities present which are too subtle to be seen by the consciously projected individual, even if he observes the cable at close range. One is a regular pulsating action. The other appears to be a slight expansion and contraction of the outstretched organ. Ostensibly they are merged. There can be no doubt concerning the operations involved. The movement in the cord is an outward manifestation of a subtle, vital process. Mention has been made elsewhere of the distinction between what is termed the passing at the time of death and the projection of the astral body. This difference lies in the fact that the astral cord is intact, running from one pole to the other, during astral projection. The phantom body is the condenser of cosmic energy, the very energy you employ in moving about. This energy is the breath of life, omnipresent in every living thing. The Adam and Eve story is no doubt fiction, but the ancient writer hit upon the truth of the matter when he said, "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." Without this breath of life, man would be really nothing but the dust of the ground. The breath of life is the universal, the cosmic, energy, condensed in the astral body, which you are using every instant. You may think you are a living body, but you are, as Moses said, a living soul. It is the astral entity which is the real you, it is the universal energy that is the breath of life. But what has all this to do with the astral cable? Simply this: when the astral body is in coincidence, you are physically alive. When the astral body moves out of coincidence, you are physically dead, unless the astral cable, running from the energetic body to the physical body, is intact. That is the purpose of the astral line of force, to deliver the breath of life to the physical body, while the finer body is projected. Throughout exteriorization, the breathing and heartbeat of the material counterpart must be sustained, and when the phantom is within chord activity range, an outward manifestation of this action can actually be seen throughout the entire length of the cable. Have you ever suffered from a headache when regular pulsations could be felt in the back of the head? Accepting the pain, such pulsatory action is like that felt in the medulla oblongata region of the exteriorized phantom, if the phantom is conscious, at every beat of the heart. Each throb of the heart can be felt in the astral, each throb is expressed throughout the cable, each throb produces a beat in the physical heart. All three are simultaneous. One can not only feel the heart's pulsations in his astral head, but he can feel them by touching the cable with his astral hand, just as you can feel your physical pulse with your physical hand. Each breath taken in the astral can be seen pulsing over the astral cord and causes a duplicate breath to be taken in the insensible body. When consciously exteriorized, one can suspend his breath at will, just as he can while in coincidence, but this is not a wise thing to do, especially for the amateur, as physical congestion is liable to set in and cause death. I have tried the experiment many times of holding the breath, while consciously projected, and within chord activity range. The instant it is suspended, the before-mentioned action of slight expansion and contraction ceases, in the psychic cable, as it likewise does in the physical body, but while the respiration ceases, the regular pulsating action continues. A deep breath in the astral will produce an identical breath in the physical, a short one will produce a short one, a quick one will produce a quick one, etc. You breathe in the astral and your heart beats in the astral, just as it does when you are in coincidence. Your physical heart beats because within it the astral heart beats. It is the spirit that quickeneth. When exteriorization occurs, there is always a constant pushing and pulling sensation of the cable, which can be felt in a noticeable degree by the projector when within chord activity range. If you can imagine some mighty giant holding you by the back of the head, with a steady grip, at arm's length, pushing you slowly away from him, drawing you back toward him, moving you from side to side, yet always maintaining a steady hold upon your head, and in that very grip you could feel a regular pulsation, then you can imagine how it feels to the conscious projector within chord activity range. This chord pressure varies according to the distance of separation. The nearer the bodies are to coincidence, the greater the pressure, or, as I might express it, the greater the space between the bodies, and the smaller the diameter of the cable, the less the amount of resistance. This must be, or should be, held in mind by anyone contemplating projection, for it is difficult to accomplish much with the range of chord activity. Once you can advance beyond it, however, you will be as free as a permanently detached phantom. There is but one way to combat this resistance, and that is by willful effort, actually to exert all your will to move away from the physical counterpart. It is my belief that, in most of the experiments in projection which are conducted by hypnotists, the phantom seldom is induced beyond chord activity range. We have seen how the breathing in the physical counterpart is controlled from the astral body, and how one can consciously interfere with this vital function. Conscious interference, I have found, will exercise a control over the cable resistance. So, too, will the heartbeat affect chord resistance. The more calm the breathing, the less will be the cable pull. If conscious, strong, deep breaths are taken by the phantom, when within chord activity range, the pull on the cord will increase, often even to the point of drawing the astral entity toward, or even into, the physical. I have tried this and know it to be a fact. On the other hand, the speedier and stronger the heartbeat, the greater the chord resistance. Although suspending the breath, while consciously exteriorized, will weaken the cable resistance, it is not advisable to practice it, to enable one to get out of chord activity range, for, as I have pointed out before, the physical would become endangered for want of oxygen, as it is already in a weakened condition. The great point to be brought out is that emotion will increase cable pull, and act detrimentally to the success of projection. Why? Merely because emotion increases the respiration and heartbeat. Suppose, for example, you should become consciously exteriorized in the astral body within chord activity range, and that fear should come over you. Your emotions would increase, the heartbeat and the breathing would be hastened. The physical would be more enlivened. The resistance in the cable would greatly increase, and, unless other factors favorable to exteriorization balance this opposition, interiorization would begin. Although the astral line of force can be likened to a rubber cable, it is in one sense unlike it. Suppose a rubber or elastic cable to be held at each end and pulled out. As the length increases, the diameter would decrease, and the resistance would intensify. With the astral cable, as the length increases, the diameter decreases, but the resistance becomes less. The force working in the cord is not produced by it. The force itself remains mysterious. At times, the power working in the cable seems to be well governed, projecting the phantom steadily from the physical, and again, this power seems erratic, first forcing the astral body ahead, then quickly drawing it back, then throwing it to one side, then to the other, etc. Now, at all times during projection, there are factors at work which are helpful and factors which are opposed to the phenomenon, just like everything else in nature. When the positive factors overbalance the negative factors, projection progresses in an orderly and well-controlled manner. If the negative factors predominate, while in coincidence, projection cannot be accomplished. If the negative factors begin to grow stronger, while the phantom is projecting, within chord activity range, they interfere with the orderly procedure. And although these two opposing forces are always present, the helpful influences must necessarily be slightly greater than the opposing ones, or outward advancement will cease. The force working in the astral cable will govern itself according to the balance of positive and negative factors, which are always present. Remember, it is not the phantom which moves itself away from the physical, or back into the physical. It is the subconscious force. To the conscious phantom it seems as though the cable were actually intelligent. This is the subconscious force working in it. This force depends upon the balance of factors, positive and negative. When these opposing factors are almost equally balanced, and when the phantom has reached a distance of separation of, say, 6 feet, there will be instability of the body, a swaying from side to side, and forward and backward. You have already learned how emotion will increase the pull of the astral cord, and how placidity will decrease it. It is really very seldom that these opposing factors do not conflict during a projection. Sounds, like emotions, will increase the tension in the cord, so the need of quiet is obvious. An interiorization caused by a noise. I recall one exteriorization when I was about 15 feet advanced, but still within chord activity range. It was about 11 o'clock at night. The progress was erratic and slow. In the cellar, someone of the family began to shake the furnace grates vigorously. The noise came unexpectedly. The whole cable seemed to vibrate for an instant, then, with a superpulling force, the resistance drew me completely from the upright position into the horizontal, right through the air to a position directly over the body, physical, and down into coincidence, the entire coming back consuming an infinitesimally short time. Sounds and emotions will shoot the phantom back into coincidence more quickly than any other opposing factor, often with lightning-like speed. When such takes place, shock is always felt in the physical body, sometimes accompanied by pain, or as I have termed it, a split-in-two feeling. This is termed repercussion. Repercussion of the astral body within chord activity range. Many curious phenomena may occur: repercussion of the astral body itself, repercussion of sensibility, repercussion of motivity, dual sensibility, lack of sensibility, catalepsy, instability of body, and many others. We will first consider repercussion of the astral body itself. Probably the most common cause of bodily repercussion is the awakening of consciousness during the process of an unconscious projection. The phantom may be projected to any distance, within chord activity range, in an unconscious state, when suddenly consciousness begins to appear. Almost before the first scintilla of consciousness comes, the astral repercusses into the physical with unthinkable speed. When thrust back into coincidence in this manner, the entire physical mechanism is jolted throughout, as though every muscle in the body contracted at the same moment, and the body gives a spasmodic jerk, more noticeable in the limbs than elsewhere. Consciousness, which incited the bodily repercussion, has commenced to become active, and, as a rule, immediately after the repercussion, the subject is conscious, in the physical body. There are hundreds of people, yes, everyone who sleeps, whose astral bodies move slightly out of coincidence for the purpose of becoming charged with cosmic energy every night. Have you ever noticed how, when greatly fatigued, and in the hypnagogic state, just entering sleep, you have suddenly given a spasmodic jump and become conscious? The doctor calls this nerves, but that explains nothing. The solution of the problem is simple. When the condenser, the astral body, is run down, the subconscious moves it out of coincidence as soon as possible, to enable it to recuperate more quickly. So, when fatigued, or in a condition of enervation, and you enter the hypnagogic state, the phantom moves out of coincidence. A shimmering of consciousness appears, or a sudden noise, or something excites the emotions, such as fear. The astral body repercusses, shocking the physical, although it might not have been separated more than a few inches from it. The phantom, remember, is cataleptic, and the instant it coincides with vigor, it forces the relaxed muscles of the physical body into conformation with its own. If the phantom inhabits the physical quietly, while cataleptic, and you become conscious, you would find yourself in temporary paralysis. The shock that repercussion brings is always unpleasant, and at times more violent than at other times. The violence of the shock corresponds to the extent of space through which the astral must move, before coming into coincidence, and also the speed with which the interiorizing takes place. And the speed of interiorizing, in turn, is regulated by the amount of overbalance of negative factors. The greater the speed and the greater the distance, the more forceful will be the jolt. Velocity and distance combined produce the maximum repercussion, but speed is the more important of the two, for even at a distance of separation of only 1 foot, if the return to the physical is with intense velocity, the physical will undergo a violent shock. The most striking result of this quick reanimation, when both speed and distance are involved, is the feeling of being split through the center of the body. Split through the center describes the agony better than any other words I can think of. It is a sudden thrust of severe pain, as though a sharp-bladed instrument had passed directly through the entire length of the body. This more severe effect is not experienced so frequently as a jumping, for the reason that most people do not have extensive separations. However, both are distressing enough. Whether there be any danger in this painful repercussion of the astral body I am not prepared to say, but it is probable that such happenings are more unpleasant than harmful. When the return is governed, as it should be, by the subconscious, with positive balance, the recoincidence is not felt by the subject. Should the student, in attempting to develop this phase, projection, meet with severe bodily repercussions, it is a symptom that projection has been accomplished to some extent, but that the negative factors are strong. One severe repercussion is likely to write fineness on the production of further extensive projections, for the subject will be in dread of the shock, and this suppressed fear will always induce an emotion at the very first flash of consciousness, and will shoot the body back into coincidence, only causing a repetition of such repercussions. On the other hand, if one is really anxious to project extensively, and undergoes bodily repercussion, he must look upon it, not from the standpoint of painfulness, which is but temporary, or fear it as dangerous, but accept it as evidence that he is succeeding, and that it is harmless, and that he doesn't care a rap whether he repercusses or not. This eliminates the hidden fear which startles the emotions, when one first becomes conscious, while projected. Sounds, sensations and emotions cause bodily repercussions, providing the phantom is within chord activity range. Outside of the range of chord activity, of course, these influences are nil. Emotion is probably the fundamental cause, sounds, sensations, etc., are contributory factors. And just here is another paradox. Astral projection of the unconscious type is of such a nature that it will promote sensations. These sensations cause emotions in the mind, or dreams. And the emotion in the dream will cause the finer body to interiorize. You may call this reasoning in a circle. In a sense it is, yet such action is the same as in dreams, e.g. irritation of or sensation in the bladder will cause a dream of emptying the bladder. And the dream of emptying the bladder will cause it to be emptied. Usually the sensations promoted by astral body activities bring about aviation-type dreams, which we will next discuss. Typical projection dreams. Here are several repeated dreams caused by astral body exteriorization, which we shall now discuss. 1. Falling dreams. 2. Flying dreams. A. The swimming dream. B. The upright, flying dream. C. The giant stride dream. 3. The body and head flapping dream. 4. The head thumping dream. 5. Dream of moving toward a phantasmal object. Have you ever experienced dreams of flying and of falling? If so, you will know how unpleasant they are. Many theories have been advanced to account for such dreams, and some of them are as incorrect as their originators are eminent. Yet these dreams are easily accounted for once you experience astral projection. Let us see what Walsh has to say concerning the dream of falling, and notice how it compares with what we have already learned of astral projection. I quote Dr. Walsh, "Dreams of falling are far from pleasurable. Generally they cause a shock which awakens the dreamer, repercussion. A superstition has it that if the dreamer falls to the bottom of the precipice, or whatnot, death will occur. This is fiction surely, the only point in its favor being that we cannot awaken a person found dead in bed, and ask him if he has had a dream of falling. On the other hand, the superstitious cannot prove their belief. It is, of course, possible that hysterical or nervous persons may have such vivid dreams of falling that functional paralysis or weakness results. The dream of falling may be associated with one of flying, coming after the latter, or it may occur independently. For example, a person may dream of flying pleasurably, and then may suddenly fall, or he may dream of falling from a mountaintop, or other high place, without any previous dream of flying. In dreams of falling, we awaken always before we touch bottom. This is because we are on the road to awaking at the time of the dream, and awake before its completion, or because the emotions excited by the dream are sufficiently strong to cause the awakening. There are many possible explanations of the falling dream. The usual explanation given is that it is related to the dream of flying, the difference being that, in the former, respiration becomes more impeded and slower, and the numbness of the skin increases. Some interference with health may, at times, produce these changes. Jewell, quoted by Ellis, states that certain observers, peculiarly liable to dreams of falling and flying, ascribe these distinctly to faulty circulation, and say their physicians, to regulate the heart's action, have given them medicines which always relieve them and prevent such dreams. Occasional dreams of falling are not to be considered of grave import, however. In not a few instances the dream of falling occurs just as one is going to sleep. As before stated, sleep comes on gradually, the muscles slowly relaxing and the senses becoming dulled. Many people, on going to sleep, experience the feeling of sliding down a hole, or an incline, and sometimes awaken startled. These persons are of a nervous type, though fatigue or slight deviation from good health may predispose to the sensation. It is possible, by paying attention to the sensations which are psychologically present in the hypnagogic state, to note the relaxation of the muscles and the sinking or sliding sensation accompanying it. Such attention is not advisable, however, when one is inclined to be impressionable and nervous. The use of a firm, hard bed often prevents the sinking sensation in the hypnagogic state, and may thus prevent certain falling dreams. If the bed sags, it may add to the sensation of sinking, as sleep is about to come on, or it may cause the sensation, with a dream of falling, when one changes posture in sleep. Persons troubled by disturbing dreams may occasionally find a remedy by obviating noisy window shutters, creaking bed springs, etc. The sensation which we feel, when awake, of being drawn to the edge of some high building we may be on, or the giddiness experienced on ascending a high place rapidly, may have some role in explaining falling dreams. The chief explanation for these sensations in the waking state is a fall of blood pressure. In a dream, one may reenact a scene from actual life, especially if he has actually experienced the feeling of falling very distinctly. A fall of blood pressure occurs not infrequently during sleep, occasioned by slight physical disturbances. This fact may also explain some falling dreams. In the foregoing, Dr. Walsh has given an ideal description of the falling dream and advanced some plausible explanations for its occurrence, and some of these causes no doubt do incite dreams of falling, yet I can say with certainty that the usual cause of the falling dream is interiorization of the projected phantom. The double may be exteriorized several feet from the body, negative factors set in, the astral will be pulled from the upright position into the horizontal, through the air to a position over the physical, then drop right down into it. The sensation of floating is caught, often, when the phantom is lying horizontal, above the physical, and the first flash of consciousness comes. A dream of flying, or of floating, will then begin. The emotions are aroused, more negative factors, a speedy descent will occur. The dream then changes to that awful sensation of falling. As the phantom recoincides with vigor, repercusses, the shock is imparted in the physical body. This illustrates how projection will incite sensation, akin to the action which is taking place, impress a dream, stir up the emotions and interiorize the phantom. The dream itself may appear to the subject to have taken a longer interval of time than it would take the phantom to interiorize, but such is not the case. A dream, consuming a seemingly long period of time, may take place in a very short interval. If you have ever experienced the falling dream, you know exactly what it feels like to interiorize with speed. Even when fully conscious, repercussion of the astral body will give the identical sensation which it does when not fully conscious. For a long time prior to my first conscious projection, I experienced, almost nightly, falling dreams, dreams of floating and vigorous repercussions. One can be but a few inches out of coincidence and experience a falling dream during the descent. Although I do not entirely agree with Dr. Walsh, he has given an ideal description of the dream, so let us take some of his excellent material in single sentences and apply them to astral phenomena. Statements thus taken will be designated by W. Dreams of falling are far from pleasurable. It is for this very reason that intense emotion stimulates and repercusses the body more vigorously. Generally they cause a shock that awakens the sleeper. That is, repercussion of the astral body. A dream of falling may be associated with one of flying, coming after the latter. When a dream of flying precedes a dream of falling, as it usually does, the floating or flying sensation is first noted because the astral body is actually floating above and to one side or the other of the physical. It is floating thus as the first gleam of consciousness dawns. The sensation arouses the emotions, the cable and the physical body are likewise affected, and begin to draw the phantom back to a position directly over the physical, hence the sensation of flying. Next, the astral drops downward into the physical, giving the sensation of falling. When it coincides, it repercusses, or shocks the physical. A person may dream of falling from a mountaintop, or other high place, without any previous dream of flying. When this occurs, the first flash of consciousness comes when the astral body is lying directly above the physical. It merely drops downward or, I should say, is pulled rapidly downward by cable pressure. In dreams of falling we awaken always before we touch bottom. This is because we are on the road to awakening at the time of the dream, and awake before its completion, or because the emotions excited by the dream are sufficiently strong to cause awakening. Most authorities agree that the subject always awakens before hitting bottom, in a falling dream. This is not true. I have hit bottom many times in such dreams, and I have inquired extensively for the testimony of others upon this question. Most of those of whom I inquired, like myself, do hit bottom exactly on time with the repercussion. That is, hitting bottom in the dream and hitting the physical body, occurs simultaneously. One can hit bottom in the falling dream, experience only a light repercussion, drift back into sleep, and go on dreaming that he is badly injured, even smashed into bits, from the fall. Certain observers, peculiarly liable to dreams of falling or flying, ascribe these distinctly to faulty circulation, and say their physicians, to regulate the heart's action, have given them medicines which relieved them and prevented such dreams. Another score for astral projection. Giving medicine to regulate the heart's action prevented the dream of falling, because it prevented astral separation. One may take strychnine and positively prevent a projection, because, by regulating the heart's action, unusual passivity of the physical is prevented. We shall see later how slowing down the speed of the heart promotes projection. Unusual physical passivity is always governed by the heart. These persons, subject to falling sensations, are usually of a nervous type, though fatigue and slight deviation from good health may predispose to the sensation. Fatigue, nervousness, etc., always promote astral body separation. Almost before sleep intervenes, the astral has moved slightly out of the physical, in order to charge with cosmic energy. One may be in the hypnagogic state, and several inches out of coincidence. Again, the doctor says, the sensation which we feel, when awake, of being drawn to the edge of a high building we may be on, or the giddiness experienced on ascending a high place rapidly, may have some role in explaining falling dreams. This is very true, I know from experience. Despite my criticisms, however, I have found Dr. Walsh's book, The Psychology of Dreams, to be a highly informative and interesting work, and I would advise the reader to procure it, if interested in dream phenomena. How I discovered the cause of many falling dreams. When a small child, I was in the habit of going almost daily to play with a friend of mine, about my own age, who lived nearby. He lived in a very large house, a square, frame building, unusually high, for it was built on the top of a mound. On the roof, which was flat, there was a railed-in porch, which was accessible by means of a flight of stairs in the attic. Many times we had tried to go onto the roof porch, but each time my friend's mother foiled our plans. Then came a day when this sentry was off duty. We were playing soldiers, and went to the roof porch, which we called Lookout Mountain, to watch for the enemy. For some time I stayed near the center of the porch, but after a while I crawled on my hands and knees over to the edge, and, pushing my head through the upright pieces which held the railing, I looked downward. I grew dizzy and seemed impelled to jump or fall to the ground. Had not the railing been there, I believe I should have done so. But in a moment I became frightened, and crawling back toward the center of the porch, made an immediate exit, and came down through the house and outdoors once more. I was always afraid to go onto the high porch after that. Even to think of it now makes me feel unsteady. About a year later I began to be troubled with falling dreams, and every dream was identical. I would dream that I was floating directly over my friend's home, always directly over the spot where I had crawled from the center to the edge of the porch. And, in the dream, the instant I reached the edge, exactly where I had looked down, that day we played soldiers, I would begin to fall. The instant I bumped the earth I would awaken with a jump. Always, in this dream, I was full-grown and a uniformed soldier. I had experienced several conscious projections then, when one night the dream recurred. I was floating over the house where my friend lived. This was about 7 years after we had played soldiers on Lookout Mountain. But the floating did not seem to startle me so much this time. Finally I stopped, directly over the spot where the falling always began. I was not falling this time. I was lying still, in the very air, at the edge of the roof. I was becoming conscious slowly. When conscious enough to understand, I found that I was projected in the astral body, and was lying in the air directly above the physical body, approximately 3 feet over it. It will not be out of place to add here that one can move downward in the dream a great distance, apparently, but in reality the drop of the astral is but a very small part of that distance. You will notice that the astral body was not actually in the place where I thought I was, in the dream, but that it was conducting an activity which resembled the action taking place in the dream. It was the sensation derived from the action of the astral body which was in some way connected with the subconscious impression I had received that day when, as a child, I had peeped over the edge of the roof, and which brought about the dream. It was then that I understood the significance of falling dreams. During that part of the dream when I was flying over the house, the astral body was above and to one side, or other, of the physical. A scintilla of consciousness had come, and, as I was actually floating, the sensation of floating came with this flash. The emotions were aroused. The cable began to pull, the phantom to move through the air, fly, to a position directly above the physical. Here I was dreaming that I was on the very edge of the roof porch. As the phantom lowered, the dream would be of falling. As the body repercussed, consciousness would return. And this explains the phenomenon of falling dreams. So, to go back to where we started, astral body activity can incite a dream of floating, flying, falling, and the dream can stir up the emotions. The emotions will activate the physical and cause cable pull, interiorizing the phantom. And the whole interiorizing may be said to come from one fundamental cause, emotion. Actions, sensations, dreams, sounds, all are contributory factors to this emotion. Emotion itself can be, one might say, positive and negative. If the sensation be pleasant, the emotion will be affected likewise. This may be said to be positive to exteriorization. But if the sensation be not pleasant, the emotion will be negative. Usually what causes negative emotion, while the phantom is floating, is the process of awakening. If the subject were to experience a dream of floating, while the astral body really was floating, and this dream was of something pleasing, something he enjoyed, say, of being an aviator, the sensation would cause a pleasant emotion, and consciousness would not be so apt to intervene. In such a state the subject would have a pleasant flying dream, and the astral would be induced to move out, rather than in. This would be an emotion positive to exteriorization. Flying dreams are often recalled as pleasurable. I have a dear friend who experiences very pleasant flying dreams. The flying, he says, is so real that he, when physically awake, can almost feel himself leaving the ground. He states that, in these dreams, he always seems to be several feet from the earth, moving over the heads of others. The common explanation given by psychologists for flying dreams is that they are caused by the rising and falling of the chest, but Ellis, and others, point out that such dreams cannot be accounted for by respiratory action alone, maintaining that one would have to lose the sense of contact with that on which one reclined. Nervousness is a noted symptom. Walsh says, epileptics sometimes have the sensation of lightness and of rising into the air. A patient asserted that, just prior to a convulsion, she felt as if she rose right into heaven. The sensation of rising also occurs to some dying persons, leading to the idea that they are being carried to heaven. One individual's dying words, "Don't let them take me, keep me down," were probably occasioned by this sensation. Theories can be advanced till doomsday to account for falling, floating, rising and flying dreams. One investigator suggests that the falling sensation is a relic of prehistoric days, and represents experiences and memories carried over from our monkeyhood state. This explanation takes the prize as being the most preposterous I have ever heard. Another prevalent belief is that the falling of the falling dream merely symbolizes a fallen woman, a fallen soul, etc. The underlying cause of most aviation-type dreams is found in astral body phenomena. The particular movement which the astral body is undergoing, when the dream is being impressed, determines the type of aviation sensation that is felt. If you will keep in mind the route the phantom takes in exteriorizing, it will be much easier to grasp the relation of astral projection to the aviation-type dream. Remember that the astral body moves upward into the horizontal position, then either uprights above the physical or moves off to one side, or other, for some distance before uprighting. This latter operation is not uncommon, and it is still more common for the astral to move upward in the horizontal for some distance, say for feet, then move off several feet to one side, still horizontal or parallel to the earth, and lie there for some time, and then return. This is as far as many projections progress, and it is in this type of experience that many aviation dreams are instigated. Still another activity is this: the astral moves to a given height, while lying horizontal, then moves off several feet to one side, slowly, then reverses again and moves back to a position directly above the physical, then out again, all the while lying parallel to the earth. If you could observe the countless astral body activities, or astral projections, you would be impressed by one outstanding feature, while the phantom is within chord activity range. This feature is repetition of movements. It has always impressed me as being very like a mother allowing her child to go to some distant place. The mother, subconscious, allows the child, astral body, to go a short distance away from her, then brings him back. The child is allowed to go farther and farther, coming back each time. Eventually the child is allowed to go to such a distance that his mother can no longer call him back outside chord activity range, and the child can do as he pleases. However, after a while, his mother will come after him and bring him home again. But the subconscious, like most mothers, sometimes permits the child to go away from home without repeatedly calling him back. Fear causes many falling dreams. One can be lying horizontal in the air and have a dream, not of being in the air, but just an ordinary dream, wherein he is frightened, although he may not remember the dream. The emotion which the dream arouses becomes so intense that interiorization of the dream body begins. Hence, the falling dream. One member of my family, only a short time ago, had such an experience. She had first dreamed that the house was being robbed. One of the burglars was going to shoot her. She became so terrified that the emotion speeded her dream body back into coincidence, and she experienced a falling dream as this action took place. It is not unusual for one to experience a falling dream after going to sleep, having had a bad fright during the day, for a terrifying incident, whatever it may be, comes to the surface of the mind during sleep and excites the emotions. Types of falls, or interiorizations. There are three distinct ways in which the astral body interiorizes, whether the subject be conscious, unconscious, or partially conscious, in other words, three falls. These are: 1. The spiral fall. 2. The straight fall. 3. The slow, vibratory fall. Sometimes the astral comes in from the side, but this is not a fall. Of this, more later. See the dream of being drawn toward a phantasmal object. We experience the first two of these falls in our falling dreams. The third one we undergo every night during sleep, and is the normal method of interiorization. The straight fall results in a violent repercussion, for the astral body drops straight down into the physical mechanism. In the spiral drop, the astral body falls with a spiral motion, and, while there is repercussion, it is not of the more violent type, such as accompanies the straight drop. However, the sensation of the actual spiral drop is very unpleasant, much more so than the straight drop. At all other times, except when the body is drawn in from the side, the double descends into the physical mechanism slowly, the entire organism vibrating, upward and downward, as it coincides with ease. This is the normal, perfectly controlled interiorization. The causes of the different falls. What causes these different falls? This question came to my mind many years ago, and, through sheer experience, I discovered that the conscious will can cause the astral body to become more subject to gravitation, if exercised in that direction, and less subject to gravitation, if so willed. I noticed also that the subconscious will can cause the astral body to move quite independently of the conscious will. I also observed that emotion will usually cause the controlling intelligence to make the astral body more subject to gravity. Thus, within chord activity range, emotion has a double effect. First, emotion brings about greater vital activity in the physical body, through the cable, causing the astral body to be drawn back toward the physical. Second, emotion usually causes the astral body to be more subject to the law of gravitation. when the astral cable begins to draw down the floating astral body, if the latter, through subconscious will, spontaneously, or incited by emotion, in a dream, be suddenly thrown into a condition where it is pulled by gravity also, a straight drop results with a violent repercussion. In the spiral drop we have one force working against the other, instead of both of them working together, as in the straight drop. That is, in the spiral drop, the cable is pulling in the phantom, but the astral body is in a condition in which it tends to resist gravity, so instead of dropping straight down into the physical mechanism, the body begins to whirl, as the cable pulls it downward. You can get a fair idea of this by imagining a boy pulling in his kite. The kite represents the astral body and the string represents the astral cord. When the boy pulls the string, the kite, resisting gravity, begins to whirl with a spiral motion as it comes downward. In the spiral drop, the emotion, as a rule, will cause the astral body to be pulled by gravity a moment before it hits the physical, but the repercussion has been offset to a great extent by the preceding spiral. In the spiral drop, the head of the subject often seems to be spinning more pronouncedly than the body. This is merely because the pull of the astral cable comes on the head. At other times the pull, on the head, becomes so intense that the body will lose its spiral course and begin to zigzag instead. In the slow, vibratory drop, there is a balance of factors, and the controlling power has everything perfectly under control. It is this balance of forces which causes the slight trembling of the phantom in an upward and downward direction, for it is almost as inclined to move upward as downward, the balance is so delicate. It is obvious that, in the first two drops, something has upset the perfect control of the guiding intelligence, e.g. emotion or fear, in a dream. It will not be out of place to mention here that exteriorization is of three kinds also, that is, there is the straight rise, the spiral rise and the normal, slow, vibratory rise. Where there is a straight rise, we have a steady push in the cable, while the body is not affected by gravitation. In the spiral rise, we have the push in the cable, while the body is affected by gravity. In the slow, vibratory rise, we have a balance, and the rise is under perfect control. In the spiral drop, or rise, the subject can frequently hear a swishing sound as if wings were fanning the air around him, or as if his body resisted the air as it whirled through it. How to break the repercussion in a falling dream? After we experience a falling dream repeatedly, on its recurrence we know, while falling, that it is a falling dream, and we dread to hit bottom. Now, I discovered long ago that one can break a falling dream merely by letting himself go. It is a curious fact, but nevertheless true, that several others to whom I told this secret recalled it, while falling, and let themselves go. Every one of them testified that the repercussion was then almost insignificant. Do not fear hitting the bottom, just let yourself fall, and the repercussion, if any, will be slight. Fear speeds up the fall. Types of flying dreams. There are several variations of the flying dream, almost as many as there are positions for the astral body to assume and movements for it to make, as it oscillates in the air, over the physical body or on the surface of the ground. Remember, projection dreams are almost invariably true action dreams. If you could control your dreams, you could control the movements of the dream body. Of this, more later. One variation of the flying dream is the swimming dream, with or without motion of the legs and arms. This always occurs while the astral body is worming along, lying in a horizontal position in the air. Another variation is that in which the dreamer is standing upright, and is moving at great speed over the surface of the earth, or along a street, etc. One is actually doing this in the dream body, during many such dreams, i.e. moving at the intermediate speed. I have awakened in this dream several times, to find myself doing this in reality in the astral. Usually this dream is pleasant. Again there is the giant stride dream, in which the dreamer seems to be moving over the surface of the earth, in giant strides, very gracefully, almost gliding along, ludicrously, at times. This is another true action dream. At such a time the dreamer is moving in the air in the astral body, and although there is motion of the limbs, he is being moved by the subconscious will. Thus, every step covers a great distance, for it is not the actual step which drives the body forward. This is akin to the steps taken by children whirling on the playground apparatus, the giant stride, the body traveling some distance between each step. Did you ever see a runner shown in slow-motion pictures? I know of no better example of the giant stride dream than one sees there, the gliding effect, the gracefulness, the apparent lack of weight, etc., as if the runner were sustained by the air, each step covering a great distance. The flapping dream, a typical inside chord activity range dream, is the body flapping dream. In it the dreamer prances round, while his body seems to be very lax, and flaps upward and downward, much as the body and arms of a horseback rider flap upward and downward when the horse is on the run. In this dream the body seems very light and the jumps are often graceful, coming at regular intervals, in rapid succession. Often the dreamer will advance along a street, or some other path, in a like manner. At other times it seems to be only the head of the dreamer which does the flapping or jerking, and this very pronouncedly. This dream is usually caused by chord activity, the push and pull in the cable causing the dream body to jerk to and fro. With some persons the dream is as if they were jumping along like a rabbit. Usually the flapping is exaggerated, and it may seem ages between one flap and the next. Head thumping dream. This is a commonly experienced within chord activity range dream. The dreamer always dreams that someone or something is thumping him over the head. The thumping is very pronounced and regular. The ordinary psychoanalyst, belonging to the school which maintains that all dreams are the results of prior states of consciousness, might tell the subject that this dream had its origin in the fact that at one time he, the subject, had seen a man beating a child over the head, and that this scene had made a deep impression upon him. This would be about as far from the truth as the Adam and Eve story. The head-thumping dream is brought about, as a rule, by the pronounced pulsations of the heart, transmitting through the cable, which makes its point of contact at the back of the head in the dream body. 9 times out of 10 when a projector becomes conscious within chord activity range, he feels the pulsations in the astral cable, in the medulla oblongata region, even before his consciousness is clear enough to tell him what is happening. It will not be out of place to state here that all dreams cannot be accounted for by prior states of consciousness. It should be understood, also, that I do not contend that all of the dreams which I have mentioned are caused by astral body activities, but that many of them are. For example, a floating dream can often result from gas collected under the diaphragm and crowding the heart, giving rise to the sensation of being in the air. Dream of moving toward a phantasmal object. Very often the dream body will rise out of the physical and move along in the air for some distance, then lower itself until it is on the same level as the physical body, but some distance from it, say 10 feet. The astral body may lie in this position for some time, then, for some reason, usually because of some incited emotional state, the cable will begin to draw the double toward the physical, which is on the same level as itself. The subject, of course, is dreaming and sees a phantasmal object instead of his physical body. He is therefore being drawn, in the dream, toward the phantasmal object, such as a Buddha, some hideous person, an animal, etc., in fact, anything which his mind conceives at the time. His physical body is the reality thus symbolized, toward which he is being drawn. Often the object seems to be advancing toward the dreamer, instead of the latter moving toward the object. This being a repeated dream, on its recurrence the mind pictures the same object. The dreamer is drawn closer and closer until eventually he is swallowed up in the object and usually awakens with a repercussion as he coincides with his physical body at the spot where the phantasmal form was in the dream. The drawing forward may be very gradual or very rapid. This dream is not unlike the falling dream in so far as its causes are concerned, the difference being that, in the falling dream, the dream body moves downward, while in this dream the body comes in from the side. Whenever I have experienced this dream I have always been drawn toward some monstrous phantasmal, Buddha-like object, and as I crashed into it, lights would fly in all directions, from the center where I struck, and this would be simultaneous with the repercussion. A friend tells me that, when she has this type of dream, two monstrous eyes seem to be staring at her, and these eyes advance toward her steadily, growing larger and larger as they approach, until at last she is swallowed up in them and awakens with a start, in her physical body. My sister used to be troubled with this dream, of being drawn toward a phantasmal object, and, in her case, the object was a massive bottle, lying on its side. She would be drawn toward, then into, the neck of the illusory bottle, in her dream, and in doing so would awaken with a start, crying out, "The cork's pulling me through the bottle." There are countless variations of this dream, but the action of the dream body really remains the same. It is the cable, of course, which draws the astral body into the physical, in the dream. I have inquired extensively concerning this dream, and find that most of those who have experienced it have done so about the age of puberty. Whether there be any significance in this I do not know. Dream delusions: in many dreams persons and objects appear as they actually are, while in many they appear to be very different. One may see something or someone, in his dream, and immediately associated ideas, or relative impressions, are called up, just as one idea brings forth another while we are awake. The mind then sees something or someone which is only relative to, or associated with, the real spectacle. While dreaming you see anything you think about, so when a relative thought is brought into the mind you see it as substance, though it is a delusion. Thus, in the flying dream, one's physical body might be sensed below, and this impression would bring relative impressions, and the body might, through associated ideas, take on the aspect of a crowd, or an animal, or whatnot, and the subject would then believe that he was flying over a crowd, an animal, etc. In the falling dream the bed might appear to be the ground, or the bottom of a pit, etc., because the mind associates the ground, or the bottom of a pit, with falling. These are just crude examples of dream delusions. There is a constant association of ideas and impressions taking place in the cryptic chambers of the mind while we sleep. We may not always be aware of them, we may not remember our dreams, but nevertheless there is always the continuous flow of impressions. And it is through association of ideas that many persons and objects appear different to us, or become distorted. To the dreamer, a man with a long beard might invoke the impression of a hairy animal. The man in the dream would then turn into an animal, in other words, the dreamer would be under a delusion. The animal might suggest hunting, hunting might suggest a gun might suggest being shot by some enemy, etc. If the subject, on awakening, remembered only that part of the dream in which he was being shot, he would say that he had a dream to that effect. One may be traveling in the astral body, dreaming, and on awakening find that many things apparently seen in the dream were but delusions. Also, in our dreams, we have exaggerations as to time and distance. For example, in the flapping dream, it sometimes seems ages between one flap and the next, while in reality it is but a very short time. And, in the falling dream, we often seem to fall a very great distance, while the actual drop of the astral body is not to be compared with this distance. Chapter 5. Have found that, as a rule, the subconscious frees the phantom from catalepsy at the end of chord activity range. When motivity is restored to the projected body within this range, it is almost certain that interiorization will come instantly, for one who is conscious and an amateur. I will detail what takes place when the phantom is freed from catalepsy within chord activity range. Suppose the astral body is projected, and upright, at a distance of about 8 feet from the physical. It is within chord activity range, and there are pull and push in the astral cable. Now, if the phantom were endowed with its motive powers here, it would act very much like a staggering drunkard or like a child learning to walk, being thrown from one side to the other. Emotions would be stirred, the phantom would become cataleptic again, pulled into the horizontal, over the physical, and drop into it. Of course, a continuance of such happenings would eventually accustom the projector to them. One actually has to learn to walk when he first becomes a projector, and is given his powers of motivation within chord activity range. Another undesirable feature of being given motive power within chord activity range is that the individual is seldom able to hold true stability, but becomes stupefied, or giddy, thinking that he is standing still and that everything else about him is in motion. However, the subconscious tries, and usually succeeds, in holding the phantom in catalepsy until it has advanced beyond chord activity range. There are so many individual functions, complex in themselves, and working simultaneously, during an act of astral projection, that I wonder if I am not muddling the reader a little. It should be remembered that most of these functions take place within chord activity range, where the phantom is apart from the physical, yet not free from the physical. In reality, a perfect projection could not be considered such if within chord activity range, even though the etheric entity were entirely separated from the material one. Range of chord activity seems to be unknown to many, and in fact, so far as I am aware, no one has ever given an explanation of it, or even mentioned it before, and it is my personal opinion that most experimenters in this field do not even know that chord activity exists, believing that the phantom is free the moment it leaves the physical body. It is not so probable that the student, attempting astral projection, will become liberated from catalepsy or gifted with motivity, or be conscious and have perfect sense functioning, while inside the range. It seldom happens. The fact that mediums possessing the ability to project consciously have never told of the eccentric working of the cable is weighty evidence that they have never been perfectly normal while within chord activity range. I believe that the subconscious has a definite plan for projecting the astral body, and that if this works correctly, as the subconscious intends it to, a normalcy will not appear in the phantom until at the end of, or outside of, chord activity range. There is no fixed time required for the astral to move from coincidence to the end of chord activity range. The temperament of the individual governs this. Some people are of such a makeup, naturally possessing strong positive factors, tending toward projection, that they can move out rapidly, sometimes being even unable to stop themselves. Such individuals experience unintentional projections very often, when asleep at night being the usual time. Others can move out, but more slowly, through a chance intervention of positive factors, or by intentionally inducing these factors. There are still others who, while appearing perfectly conscious, healthy, and even when walking, will have factors set in which are positively favorable to projection. The etheric will begin to shake, reel, and unbind itself from its physical counterpart. The physical will begin to move, twist, tremble. Next, the etheric will become cataleptic, ready to move out. The physical will become so also. Then the etheric separates, and the physical falls in a relaxed heap. This is commonly called epilepsy. For the past 8 years I have been in close contact with this disease, which has baffled medical science, and I have finally made up my mind that what I have described is precisely what occurs at the time of an attack. Usually there is a physical derangement somewhere in the victim which is the basic cause of the unbinding of the etheric body. Brain lesions and abnormalities of the sexual anatomy are common causes. I know of one case where pressure of gas against the solar plexus throws the patient into the spell. Abnormal mentality always looms up with this disease, and I am of the opinion, this is not original with me, however, that the unbalancement of the mind, i.e. insanity in any form, is caused because the etheric is not bound tightly to the physical. If sum to the power of one regarding this question of insanity, the anonymous author of The Maniac, that most valuable psychological document, says, in a footnote, the ego can safely withdraw from the physical body, and the etheric body, which is the link between the physical body and the ego, must be shuffled off as one sheath and left together, united. Then the physical suffers no harm. The trouble in madness is that a separation has taken place between the two. Panacea could be found either in medical science, mental science, or any other science, which would accomplish the result of creating a stronger tie between the two counterparts. What a godsend it would be to humanity! When the intermediary between the etheric and physical body is not normal, as in the case of epilepsy, some subjects drift into imbecility. I am acquainted with one woman who became gifted with unusual clairvoyant powers about the same time when she became a victim of epilepsy. Again, some outstanding figures in history have been epileptics, such as Caesar, Napoleon, and Socrates. Just why abnormalities of the mind bring about specific results in specific cases is a matter of which we know little. Eccentricities of the senses, within chord activity range, function so capriciously that it would be difficult, if not impossible, to give an entirely satisfactory account of what might, and might not, happen in the sense field. The best that can be done, at least the best that I can do, is to tell of these curious sense functionings, as I have experienced them. First, let us take the sense of sight. When we are in coincidence and conscious, we see only those objects which agree in vibration, or are within the range of vibration, to which our eyes are attuned, unless we are clairvoyant. When we move out of coincidence, and are conscious, the sense of sight does not always restore itself immediately, but when it does, the range of vibration has increased, and we are then able to see not only the material things, which we formerly saw, but astral things as well. We call this seeing astrally, or gastral vision. During close-range separation, with consciousness, there are several ways in which this seeing may occur. The astral cable is as adaptable to the conduction of sense currents as is the body, and the senses can shift back and forth from one body to the other, or be in both bodies and the cable at the same time, within chord activity range. Ofttimes the phantom can be detached, within chord activity range, and consciousness will be on duty. The subject will see the phantom from the physical eyes, although they are closed, moving, standing, lying, in the air, etc., in the room. Sheaths, the physical and the etheric, which should never be separated during the lifetime of the physical body, and which cannot be separated, partially, without causing serious physical injury, or completely, without causing the death of the physical body. Doctors having already discovered, in anesthetics, something that acts directly upon the etheric link and drives it out of the physical body, should now turn their attention to discovering some means of acting upon the etheric link in the reverse way, to drive it back, or draw it back, or attract it back into the physical body from which it has become dislocated. When they have discovered a means to accomplish that, they will have discovered the means to cure all cases of a madness caused by and due to such dislocations, h.c. I believe I mentioned before that the sleeper will sometimes become conscious and see himself, in the astral, from his physical eyes, lying about 1 foot above, and horizontal to, his physical body. This body, which is resting in the air, appears gauzy and seems to be trembling. He may awaken almost immediately after seeing this, with a repercussion. And he will insist that he saw all this by means of the physical eyes, for, he will say, I saw this from the physical, I saw the astral lying above me. Therefore, I was conscious in the physical. True as it may seem to him, he was not conscious in the physical at all. He was conscious in the astral, the sight current moving through the cable to the physical eyes. The physical did not see the astral. It was not the physical eyes which saw the phantom lying above the physical body, for the normal physical eyes could not see the phantom, and, furthermore, the physical eyes were closed. The seat of consciousness is in the astral body, and the current of vision, instead of centering at the astral body's eyes, was cutting one of its peculiar capers, and making a circuit across the cable to the physical eyes. By way of illustration, let us take our normal sight, while physically conscious. We look out from the eyes, we say, because the current runs from the eye to the conscious mind. Now suppose your eyes and the wires running from them were lifted out of their sockets, placed 1 foot in front of you, and turned toward you. Then you would see yourself, instead of looking out from yourself. And that is how the astral vision current occasionally functions, across the cable, and the phantom sees itself. And this is but one eccentricity of astral vision. There is another, still more complicated, more mystifying phenomenon than astral vision, however, and that is dual astral vision, which occurs when the projector apparently sees from the physical eyes, and at the same time sees from the eyes of the astral body, where he really is. When this occurs, it does so very rarely, the subject can watch the astral just as if he were in the physical, observing it as it moves about in the room, and at the same time he is able to see the physical counterpart, lying with closed eyes upon the bed, as he moves about in the astral body. What would you think if you were actually to experience such an unbelievable happening? What would you think if you could see from two places, separated from each other, at the same time? Why, it would only be natural for you to believe that you were conscious at these two different places simultaneously. But we have already learned that the conscious mind is not a part of the physical body, but operates in the astral body. This dual astral vision is not necessarily dual consciousness, it is a double-track sense of sight, one of these tracks running across the line of force to the physical body, and the other to the astral body. The first time I ever experienced this I thought it was dual consciousness, but I soon discovered that it was merely dual vision. It occurs only within chord activity range, so far as I know, as does the single sense of sight from the physical eye. If dual astral vision be operative, and the phantom moves beyond chord activity range, plink, out goes the vision from the physical eyes. Now, there are authorities who are of the opinion that it is possible to produce dual consciousness, or consciousness in the physical and the astral simultaneously. For my own part, one cannot say that this is impossible. I have seen too many mystifying things to deny that such dual consciousness can be produced. However, I do not believe that I have ever experienced it, now that I understand the dual action of the senses, which I formerly thought was double consciousness. In his book, Higher Psychical Development, Muldoon Carrington says, the astral body is, of course, very closely connected with the dream body, with which it is more or less identical. Dr. Van Eden, of Holland, conducted some extremely interesting experiments upon himself, in his dream body. He endeavored to transfer his consciousness to this body, so that he remembered everything that transpired during sleep, and to control that body so that, through it, he would be enabled to manipulate physical objects in the material world. He did not succeed fully in doing so, but came very near it, and succeeded to the extent that he induced a complete dual consciousness. He remembered clearly that he was asleep in bed, with his arms folded across his breast, and at the same time he remembered clearly that he was looking out through the window and saw a dog run up and look at him through the glass, and run away again, and details of that character. He then remembered gliding towards the couch on which his physical body was lying down beside it, and a moment later woke up and was again, of course, in the physical body. But he had the extreme sense of duality of consciousness of the two bodies. Here, you will see, Dr. Van Eden maintains that he was conscious in the two bodies at the same time. I have met with experiences similar to this one recorded by Dr. Van Eden many times, and at first I too believed that my consciousness was in both bodies simultaneously, but after further investigating the mystery, I concluded that it was, as I stated before, a double functioning of vision. I have made the remark, and I again make it, that I have seen too many wonders to deny that dual consciousness is possible, so, although I do not contradict Dr. Van Eden's claim in the least, I wish to point out the striking similarity between what the doctor believes to be dual consciousness and what I believe to be dual vision. You will notice, no doubt, that the account which Dr. Van Eden gives could easily be explained as the result of dual vision, with a single consciousness, and the astral line of force carrying the sense of sight to the position occupied by the physical eyes. There is to me something about dual consciousness which seems undesirable, even if it were a possibility. If consciousness can, in fact, multiply itself, if it can be in the physical body in the absence of the spiritual body, then the claims which have been advanced, that the consciousness operates through the non-material counterpart alone, are fallacious. Now if, during a projection, the physical body had a consciousness of its own, then of what use is the inner man? Can both bodies be conscious at the same time, while separated? If the cable breaks, will the physical still exist consciously? I think not. It is my own idea, and I have good reason for believing it to be true, that what is supposed to be dual consciousness is in reality an accessory track of astral vision located in the astral the line of force, and working concurrently with the phantom's eyes. Dropping this matter of dual consciousness for the present, we will go back to our discussion of dual vision, for it is certain that the latter exists within chord activity range on many occasions. We might even say that, during a conscious projection, within chord activity range, the sense of sight can function in three ways: from the eyes of the phantom, as it should, from the spot occupied by the physical eyes, and from both simultaneously. As a rule, one finds that the sense of sight acts from the phantom's eyes alone, but there are the above-mentioned exceptions, and in this work I have not followed the usual procedures, but have gone deeply into the unusual features as well. However, I would advise the reader not to concentrate too long on those things which I have spoken of as the unusual features of projection, lest these crystallize in his mind, and by doing so influence his development, for in the astral as one thinks, he is. Duplicate sense of touch. In studying the above account of Dr. Van Eden's, let us consider an interesting feature contained therein. While standing by the window, in the dream body or astral body, and looking out, the doctor saw a dog run up and look at him through the glass and run away again. Evidently this dog could see astrally, as he was apparently able to see the astral body of Dr. Van Eden, and there is no reason to believe that animals cannot do so as well as human beings. The dog, especially, seems equipped with subtle senses. I had often heard that dogs are sensitives. I had a pet dog, in fact I have to the power of one. There are times when the projected phantom can see from different parts of its body without using the eyes. Of this, more later. Sm him yet, although he is 13 years old. Jack is his name, a mongrel, but always a true friend to me. I wanted to find out if Jack could see me, while I was exteriorized in the astral body, so I gave him sleeping quarters in my own room. I knew I could trust Jack not to meddle or to make any noise, and that he would growl if anyone came near the room door at night. There was only one trouble with Jack: he slept too soundly in these quarters, and whenever I did succeed in getting out, he was asleep and my presence did not arouse him. Then a night came when, by accident I suppose, I was consciously exteriorized and Jack was not asleep. He was standing on the floor, looking appealingly at my body on the bed, as if waiting for an invitation to jump up and sleep beside it. From the other side of the room I tried to get Jack's attention. I moved to a spot where his eyes would be in line with mine, and went through the motions of beckoning and calling him. Still his eyes watched the physical, although once he held his head up and sniffed the air in the direction of the phantom. But this was only for an instant, and he seemed more taken up with watching the shell than in seeing me. I do not believe that he even sensed that I was not in the shell. Finally something happened which did prove interesting. Jack leaped onto the bed and pushed in closely against the side of the oblivious body, and curled up there. And as he did so, a strange thing happened. The physical was rocked upward and downward slightly, from the action of the springs, as the dog's weight landed upon the bed, and the astral, in exactly the same time, rocked upward and downward in the air, in perfect harmony with the movement of the physical, although the astral body was in the vertical and the physical was in the horizontal position. But the most amazing part was that as the dog curled up against the physical, it felt to me as if he were actually curling up against my side in the astral, and I could feel his weight against me in the side of my astral body until physically active again. How did this transference of feeling or sense of touch occur? In the same way that one feels anything material, in the same way that it feels, when physically active, by sensing it through the currents of feeling. They happen to be in physical, cable, and astral body, when projected. In other words, if you feel anything material, while in the astral body, you must be within chord activity range, and what you will feel will have to touch the material counterpart, then it is transmitted over the line of force into the astral body, and that is where you really feel it. But this is only an idiosyncrasy of the sense of touch, just as the sense of sight acts in an erratic manner, and occurs, so far as I know, only within the range of chord activity. We have seen, too, that even movement, in the physical, can duplicate itself in the astral, as it did when the physical rocked up and down from the jar of the dog's weight, as he jumped upon the bed. I have long known that, at times, when within chord activity range, a touch on the material body may be felt in the same spot on the astral member, but it was news to me that the reverse of this is possible also, and that a touch on the astral member can be felt in the physical member, yet some eminent authorities seem to have established this as true. Thus, in some experiments which I have conducted, I have succeeded in partly dissociating the two organisms by means of hypnotic suggestion, while the subject was in deep trance, and the independent existence of this astral or etheric body has been proved by phenomena of sensibility and motivity. Thus, after the inner body has been to some extent loosened, I have pricked this body with a needle, and, though the prick was some inches distant from the surface of the real, material body, the subject, nevertheless, felt the prick as if it were on her real body. I pricked the surface of the etheric body, that is, distant some 6 or 8 inches from the material body, but, by a phenomenon known to psychical students as a repercussion of sensibility, it rebounded or reacted upon the material body in such a way that the subject felt the pricks actually in the body itself. The experiments of others, along this line, strengthen or corroborate these tests, and Mr. Carrington, in his book, Higher Psychical Development, goes on to say, the French experimenters have conducted many useful experiments on what they call exteriorization of sensibility and motivity, that is, the sensory power and the motive power. If I place my hand over a matchbox in order to move it, I have to touch it. If, however, I am a medium, and I place my hand at a distance of half an inch from the matchbox, and then will that the box shall be moved, it really is moved, the theory being that, in this case, I can project from my fingers an energy which bridges the gap between the fingers and the box, and so moves it. That is projection of motive force. On the other hand, if I prick my finger, I feel it only if my finger be touched, but when the sensibility is projected beyond the body, as it is, seemingly, in some cases of deep hypnosis and trance, then you can prick a space half an inch from the finger, and you will feel it, and that has gone so far, in the experiments of Colonel de Roches, and others, that they claim to have taken out the astral body altogether, from the physical, and set it to one side, as it were, and, by pricking this body, every prick in the astral body repercussed, as we say, or was felt in the original, physical body, wherever the prick was made in the astral body. This, of course, bears a striking resemblance to the older witchcraft phenomena, in which the witch was supposed to turn into a dog or cat, and if the dog or cat were shot, or had an eye put out, the next day the witch was found with an eye out, repercussion. It is a striking similarity, curious and interesting to the power of one. We have spoken of this before in connection with materialization, you will recall. Although I have long known that, at times, when the projected phantom is within chord activity range, any touch on the physical member is felt on the same spot of the astral member, the reverse was news to me. And, without casting any doubt upon the genuineness of these experiments, I must confess that I cannot understand how a needle can prick the astral body, and be felt, when that body is intangible and impervious to material things. Remember that the experimenters who discovered this repercussion of sensibility are scientific men, and are trustworthy. The fact that I cannot understand how the needle can actually come into contact with the astral body, which is non-material, does not in the least disprove these claims. In trying to solve this problem, several purely theoretic explanations presented themselves to my mind. I noticed, in reading these accounts, that the subject was under hypnosis, and wondered if this repercussion of sensibility was not in some manner brought about because of this condition. I also wondered if a similar occurrence might not be brought about when projection occurred without suggestion or hypnotism. Phantom can pass through needle points without feeling. It was about 2 years ago that I read the first accounts of repercussion of sensibility caused by needle pricks on the astral body, and I constructed a rude pricker to test this out. Taking a board which reached from the head to the foot of the bed, I planted several needles in it, points outward, and fastened this to the irons of the bed, about 18 inches directly over the place where I slept, so that the needles pointed downward. I succeeded in producing one projection, and experienced another which was unintentional, during the weeks when I was trying this experiment. Although the separations were not extensive, I did pass through the board without the least tinge of feeling. It is for this reason that I have been speculating upon the belief that repercussion of sensibility, as produced by the French experimenters, is somehow accounted for by reason of the hypnosis. I readily admit, however, that I may be wrong in this idea. Let us, now, see how to the power of one a great deal of curious material regarding repercussion may be found in Adolphe Dassier's book Posthumous Humanity, in which an attempt is made to connect such cases with certain phenomena of witchcraft. See also my discussion of the same theme in the Problems of Psychical Research, chapter Witchcraft, Its Facts and Follies. H.C. This might be hypnotic delusion of the senses. I quote Professor L. A. Harridan, Delusions of the senses during the hypnotic trance. When this state is complete, hypnotic trance, the mind of the subject remains dormant until aroused to activity by some suggestion conveyed to him by the operator, and to which he responds as automatically as a locomotive obeys the manipulations of its driver. He is indeed, for the time, a mere thinking automaton. He is given up to the domination of any idea that may be made to possess him, and he has no power of judging its consistency with the actual facts, because he is unable to bring it into comparison with them. Thus, he may be played upon like a musical instrument, thinking, feeling, acting, just as the operator wills that he should think, feel, speak or act, but this, not as has been represented, because his will has been brought into direct subjection to that of the operator, but because his will is in abeyance, and all his mental operations are directed by such suggestions as the operator may choose to impress upon his consciousness. His mind, having lost its power of self-direction, cannot shake off the yoke of any dominant idea, however tyrannical, but must execute its behests. It cannot bring any notion with which it may be possessed to the test of common sense, but must accept it. It cannot recall any fact, even the most familiar, that is beyond its immediate grasp. In another place Professor Harridan says, the organs of sense and perception are all channels for the conveyance of any suggestion made to the subject. In very many ways, by a look or a movement, the hypnotist is able to convey a suggestion to his subject which will be quite as potent as if made by means of speech. With a subject in deep hypnotic trance, a needle can be run through the flesh, with the suggestion to the subject that it is not felt, and such will be the result. Now, if a needle were stabbed into the space occupied by the astral body, while that body is exteriorized and under hypnosis, why could the subject not be made to feel this prick in the physical? For we have already learned that sense currents can be present in the astral body, in the cable, and in the physical, all at the same time. Thus, even though the pain be imagined, it would be as real to the subject as if it were not imagined, and, through duplicate sensation, would be felt in the physical body. The question in my mind is the subject normally conscious, when under the control of an operator, or is he subject to delusions, illusions, and hallucinations of the senses? I think the latter is the case. If the prick of the needle actually did make contact with the sensibility of the astral body, and the subject were normally conscious, he should feel it there. But I wonder if this same repercussion of sensibility would occur if the operator suggested that it would not be felt, as he pricked the space occupied by the astral counterpart? For my own part, I cannot understand how a subject can be himself, while exteriorized, can understand the true significance of what is taking place, and still be under hypnotic control. Most of the French experiments were conducted through the medium of hypnotism, but whether a normal condition of the phantom can be brought about in this manner I am not prepared to say. All that I have undertaken to say, however, in connection with repercussion of sensibility, is nothing more than speculation. In truth, I am no authority on astral projection which is induced by hypnosis. I have never met with repercussion of sensibility, from the astral to the physical, caused by the contact of any material object with the astral body, although repercussion of the astral body itself is very common. On the other hand, if the phantom were materialized at the end of the line of force, the needle could prick this temporary material body, and, through duplicate sensibility, could be felt in the permanent material body. This would be logical, consistent, whereas pricking a needle into the non-material form and having it felt, when the needle does not make contact with the astral, seems, to me, to be very inconsistent. Suppose this theory to be true, that a needle prick on the exteriorized astral body actually would make contact with the sensibility. Wouldn't an astral entity have to be constantly on the watch, dodging pointed material objects? If he did not, these pointed objects would make contact with his sensibility. There is something wrong with this theory. I believe it is delusion of the senses. However, it would be the height of folly for me to say that repercussion of sensibility, as claimed by the French authorities, is impossible, especially when such notable men proclaim it to be true. There is one thing of which I feel certain, however, in this connection, which is that, if repercussion of sensibility takes place, it does so while the phantom is within chord activity range. Let us again recall what chord activity range is. It is a range of near separation, when the astral line of force is active and above its minimum size, when pull and resistance are present, when the senses cut capers and duplicate themselves, when duplicativity can be present, when catalepsy is almost always present, when instability of the body is usual, when the breathing and heartbeat can activate the cable, when repercussions of the astral body can take place. In short, it is a state of separation which is not perfectly free, and in which abnormalities can exist. It is a state when, although the phantom is separated, it is still bound to the physical counterpart, through the medium of the line of force more or less firmly, according to the individual who is the projector. Duplicate sensibility and obsession. Let us again turn our attention, for a few moments, to transmission of sensibility from the physical to the astral body through the medium of the cable. It has long been known that many victims of violent death, especially when the death was painful, have returned shortly after to mediums and have complained of still feeling the pain which was present in the physical body at the time of death. Most mediums, believing the astral body to be immune to pain, have, while in communication with such tormented phantoms, told them that they, the phantoms, were dead, in a body immune to pain, and that the ego, in the astral, is suffering from pain which is purely imaginary. These bewildered beings do not merely imagine their agony in the beginning, even though the state of mind does keep them obsessed with the idea long after the cable has snapped. What really happens in such a case is this: the phantom, at the time of death, was exteriorized and within chord activity range, while sensibility was transmitted from the physical body to the astral body, just as I, while exteriorized and within chord activity range, could feel the weight of the dog in my side, while in the astral body. This pain, in conjunction with the bemuddlement of such an experience as the victim is passing through, actually drives him mad, obsessed, and the obsession continues long after the cable severs. It is not merely a condition of mind which puts the phantom in this predicament, it is the actual transference of sensation across the line of force, transference of the actual pain, mind you. And, in this madness, the victim is often constantly living through, even for months afterwards, the death he experienced. In other words, he continues to experience the death and its painfulness. Let me quote an experience which illustrates this. Mrs. M.E. Hess, a personal friend of the present writer's, who is an obsession healer living at La Salle, Illinois, gives this account, which we will call the case OF-89. A patient, a lady of about 35 years of age, was brought to Mrs. Hess. The patient believed that she was a locomotive engine and would make all of the sounds characteristic of what she thought she was. She would go through the house, chug, 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 then blow out steam, then whistle, and would follow the track through imaginary towns. On investigation, the healer found that a spirit, in the astral, was constantly following the woman, and that this spirit was a locomotive engineer. Next, Mrs. Hess got into communication with the obsessor, and learned that he was killed in a violent manner, under his engine, number 89. This, in fact, was what he called himself, 89, and he was in such bewilderment that he thought he was still under the engine. He could not understand that he was dead and in the astral body. By bringing the engineer's mother onto the scene, who had passed away prior to that time, the obsessor was eventually enlightened, and found that his body was not hurting him after all. But it had not been mere imagination in the beginning. 89 was thrown into this insanity in the outset by actually being conscious in the astral body, within chord activity range, when duplicate sensation existed, and he could feel the engine upon him, accompanied by the pain it brought. you wonder at these astral victims becoming insane, being themselves obsessed. Why, such an experience as this would drive anyone into a similar state of mind. But, fortunately, factors at the time of death are not always as unfortunate as they were in this case. Consciousness does not always manifest at the same time and place, sensibility does not always circulate in the three organisms at once, the physical body, astral body, and astral cable. Deaths are not always violent and crushing. Yet this case goes to show that there is, after all, a reason why some spirits return and complain of the pangs which they are still experiencing and which to them are more than imagination. Do not think for 1 minute that this pain in the astral is not genuine. It is real. The sensibility is the same sensibility that it was when the bodies were in coincidence, and, although the astral phantom is insensible to physical things, if he does contact the pain by way of the physical, through the cable, it is a real pain, and stays after the cable snaps and until it is cured by the mind. It is, I realize, hard to conceive of sensibility existing apart from the nerves of the body, but merely because it seems incredible is no reason why it cannot do so. Perhaps this in some manner explains why some persons who have had arms or legs severed claim to be able to feel the arm or the leg after the stump has healed. Might it not be through the sensibility present in the astral, occupying the space formerly occupied by the physical arm? In Psychical Phenomena and the Way, here Ward Carrington has quoted a case similar to that of the Engineer 89. We will call this the painful bayonet case. On New Year's Day, 1916, 3 friends were sitting for spirit communication when a soldier came to them, complaining that the bayonet, which killed him, was still through his body, astral, and that it was giving him pain, that he wished to have it removed. After an extensive conversation between the astral entity and the 3 sitters, much was learned as to the phantom, that he was a Canadian, was the husband of a Mrs. Weston's cook, whose name was Alice, who lived in Herne Bay, near London, and other details. But his main concern was that the bayonet was hurting him. He had been run through by a German on Christmas Day, and he wanted it removed. One of the sitters replied, "You are deluding yourself. If you are dead you are in a new body, the bayonet may be sticking in the old body, but it is not really sticking in you now." To this the phantom replied, "Just try a bit yourself." It seems that the astral being was fully aware of the pain, and would not admit that it was a delusion until one of the sitters apparently pulled the bayonet out. Where did this soldier get his idea of pain? From having it transmitted across the astral cable, from the physical, while conscious. Because it was ultimately eliminated by the mind does not prove that the pain did not exist. But, you will say, how do you account for the bayonet? Surely there was no bayonet sticking in the phantom's astral body. But there was. Not a physical bayonet, but an astral form of the bayonet, created by the mind of the phantom. We will discuss how the mind creates its own environment later. Duplicate and shifting motivity. A tremendous force operates within the astral cable. I have often wished that some method could be devised for measuring this force in physical terms, that is, to determine just how much material weight could be moved by this force, if the cable could make contact with it. I firmly believe that, while projected and within cord activity range, if I could obtain some tangible grips upon a physical object, the force in the cable could move that object, even though the latter weighed a ton. From my experience, I have good reason to believe that a free cable can extend outward from the body, i.e. a cable or rod without an astral body at its end, and that this free cable can exert a push and pull action, and can transmit motivity which, under certain conditions, can cause raps and move objects. One of the methods by which clairvoyance is said to be facilitated is by means of an astral line of force. Granting this to be true, it would be possible for this motivity of the subject's body to shift outside the body, along that line of force, and with his bodily motivity thus exteriorized, the subject would be powerless, for the time, although his astral body would still be in coincidence and he could be conscious. It has often been noted that a medium has been in this condition of powerlessness when raps were produced. A rap produced at will, during exteriorization of motivity. In fact, I have produced raps myself while in this state. I recall very distinctly waking one morning and finding myself minus my motivity. I reasoned within myself thus: if my motivity is extending outside my body, and I am now conscious, why cannot I will that a rap be produced? And I did will with determination that a rap should come on the dresser. The rap was produced. As a rule, however, when one gets into this condition of exteriorized motivity, he becomes too excited ever to think of doing such a thing, and, instead of willing his motivity away from him, he is only anxious for its return. As to moving objects, when the astral body itself is projected on the end of the line of force, under certain conditions this can be done, and we shall discuss this later. For the moment, the point I wish to emphasize is this: motivity can shift across the astral body, just as sensibility can. It can make quick shifts or slow shifts. And, during astral projection, within chord activity range, dual motivity can exist in some degree. Of this I am certain. When this occurs, every move of the projected end of the line of force reacts upon the subject's physical anatomy, usually in a slight manner, depending upon the amount of motivity still existing there, which as a rule is very little. With this condition of duplicate motivity, a move of the astral arm will produce a twitch in the physical arm, much as a dog's legs will twitch in his dreams. Duplicate motivity is much less common than duplicate sensibility, some persons seeming to be more inclined to it than others. It is present in the unconscious and the dream state more than in the conscious state. Here is a mystery which is too deep for me, but I know it to be the truth, viz. that one can move an object in his dream, but that the object does not move until about 2 seconds later, in reality. I have had an experience of this character myself. All of which reminds me of what Sir Oliver Lodge has stated, in discussing the phenomena produced by Eusapia Palladino. He says, in part, the fact that the medium's body undergoes sympathetic or corresponding movements or twitches is very instructive and interesting. Sometimes, when she, the medium, is going to push a distant object, she will make a little sudden push with her hand in this direction, and immediately afterward the object moves. Once this was done for my edification with constantly the same object, viz. a bureau in the corner of the room. When 6 or 7 feet away, the time interval between the push and the movement of the object was something like 2 seconds. When the accordion is being played, the fingers of the medium are moving in a thoroughly appropriate manner, and the process reminds one of the twitching of a dog's legs when he is supposed to be dreaming that he is chasing a hare. It is as if Eusapia were dreaming that she was fingering the instrument, and dreaming it so vividly that the instrument was actually played. It is as if a dog dreamt of the chase with such energy that a distant hare was really captured and killed, as by a phantom dog, and, fanciful as for the moment it may seem, and valueless as I suppose such speculations are, I am, I confess, at present more than half disposed to look in some such direction for a clue to these effects. In an idealistic conception of nature, it has by many philosophers been considered that thought is the reality, and that material substratum is but a consequence of thought. So, in a minor degree, it appears here, it is as if, let us say, the dream of the entranced person were vivid enough physically to affect surrounding objects and actually produce objective results, to cause not only real and permanent movements of ordinary objects, but also temporary fresh aggregations of material particles into extraordinary objects, these aggregations being objective enough to be felt, heard, seen, and probably even photographed while they last. When I say that one can dream of moving a physical object, and that, if the object be moved, it is not moved in reality until about 2 seconds after one has dreamed that he has moved it, I mean just what I say, regardless of the fact that common sense would deny this. Perhaps this peculiarity will be fathomed in the future. When the physical body twitches in a dream, it is often because the dream body moves, and duplicate motivity causes the reaction upon the former. The phantom can lie above the physical body during sleep, of course, and duplicate involuntary actions take place, e.g. nervous twitches or similar unconscious movements on the part of the physical body. It is easier to move a physical object with a free line of force than with the astral body projected on the line of force, for in the former case the motivity is concentrated at the point while in the latter case the motivity is required to manipulate the astral body, and if the body has its motivity restored to it, the motivity is diffused throughout it. I have often spoken of the tremendous magnetic pull exerted by the line of force during interiorization. It is interesting to know that this drawing in force is identical with the force which draws the materialized spirit back into the cabinet, and many prominent experimenters have found that, when anything happens to the materialized form, it reacts upon the body of the medium in the cabinet. In other words, there is a line of force between the medium's physical body and the materialized form. The theory might be advanced that, on many occasions, at least, it is the medium's astral body which materializes, constituting a duplicate material body of the medium outside the cabinet. Should this happen, and it does, what would the skeptic say? He would pronounce the manifestation a fraud and insist that he had examined the medium's flesh and blood body. And to prove his argument he would stick a hat pin into the wrist of the materialized form, which, of course, would react upon the body of the medium inside the cabinet, and this scar would prove, to the skeptic, who knows nothing of repercussion and reaction, that the medium had been faking. I do not by any means say that all mediums are genuine, but there is a possibility for a genuine medium to be discredited. If the psychic cable be severed, while the astral body is projected, death to the physical body is the result. This is apparently what has taken place in certain seances, when the body has been seized, which, in such cases, proved to be the astral body of the medium. It was prevented, as it were, from being drawn back into the physical. In some cases, which are on record, I believe, the medium has died in the cabinet. I am well acquainted with an old occultist, Carl Fuel, who told me that, on one occasion, a little girl who was sleeping in a hammock outside the seance room, while a materialization seance was in process inside, materialized in the seance room, and claimed to be the daughter of a member of the circle, who had a spirit daughter about the same age. Yet the form was that of the girl sleeping in the hammock outside, and had not been in any way transformed to represent the girl she claimed to be. The girl who slept in the hammock knew nothing of it, on awaking. We know that thought can affect the form of the astral body, and it might be possible for some spirit, wishing to manifest, to impress the unconscious astral body of the medium into a form like its own, and then talk through it. However, this is a subject into which we have not time to enter now. We have gone a long way in our discussion of duplicate motivity, but I believe that it has been worth our while. Chapter 6. Separation and discoincidence have been used more or less as synonymous terms, although actually there is a difference in their meaning in relation to astral phenomena. The astral entity can be discoincided from the physical, and yet not be separated from it, so that a clear space lies between the two. That is, the astral can be 1 inch out of coincidence, and still the bodies would, in parts, occupy the same space. Yet these parts would not coincide with each other. I suppose you will say, if this were true we should have known it before. However, I tell you that every time you sleep your astral body moves slightly out of coincidence, perhaps only a fraction of an inch, perhaps more. At any rate there is discoincidence during sleep, although this discoincidence may be infinitesimal, and has little to do with one's ability to project, even though projection is an extension of discoincidence. One can be normal, entirely immune to astral projection, yet his astral body always slightly discoincides during sleep. Here Ward Carrington was on the right track when he wrote, "Various theories have been advanced in the past to explain sleep, but no satisfactory theory has ever been fully accepted. Thus we have so-called chemical theories, which endeavor to account for sleep by assuming that certain poisonous substances are formed in the body during waking hours and are eliminated during sleep. Others have suggested that sleep is due to peculiar conditions of the circulation of blood in the brain, still others that the action of certain glands explains sleep, others that muscular relaxation accounts for it, others that the lack of external stimuli is sufficient to induce profound slumber. All of these theories have been shown insufficient to explain the facts. We shall never arrive at a satisfactory theory of sleep, doubtless, until we admit the presence of a vital force and the existence of an individual human spirit, which withdraws more or less completely from the body during the hours of sleep, and derives spiritual invigoration and nourishment during its sojourn in the spiritual world. There is one thing about sleep we do not understand, and that is sleep is the natural restorative, though how this is brought about is unknown. Brain and Mind, by R. J. A. Berry, FRS, page 89. HC The process of unconsciousness. We do not know how unconsciousness is brought about. We do not know where the conscious mind seemingly evaporates to. We do know, however, the purpose of sleep. You would never recuperate a nervous energy if the astral body conformed everlastingly to the physical, and were in exact coincidence. We might term this natural discoincidence, which everyone undergoes, the zone of quietude, for there is no activity of the bodies there, except the natural functioning. If you could see, astrally, someone asleep, you would observe the physical form, and above this, perhaps only extending a fraction of an inch beyond it, you would see an outline of the astral body. Remember, I am speaking only of natural sleep. Normally, the astral slides out of coincidence and into coincidence again, unnoticed by the subject going to sleep, or awakening, in a slow, quiet way. Yet it can do so with such speed that we cannot consciously comprehend this duration of time. It is usually in the hypnagogic state that this occurs, and, as I have said before, the subject is seldom aware of it, seldom feels it, although at times he does so. Let us recall what Walsh has said regarding this: sleep comes on gradually, the muscles slowly relaxing and the senses becoming dulled. Many people, on going to sleep, experience the feeling of sliding down a hole, or an incline, and sometimes awaken startled. These people are of a nervous type, though fatigue or slight deviation from good health may predispose to the sensation. It is possible, by paying attention to the sensations which are psychologically present in the hypnagogic state, to note the relaxation of the muscles and the sinking or sliding sensation accompanying it. Now, if you could hold consciousness up to the last moment, in the hypnagogic state, you could feel this act of discoincidence, as indeed nervous and fatigued people often do. And why do they? Because the astral always moves into the zone of quietude, or slightly discoincides, during sleep, for the purpose of charging with universal, or cosmic, energy. Point 1 in the nervous person, in the fatigued one. As to this theory, that the human body is recharged with energy during the hours of rest and sleep, this is one which I myself have defended at great length, purely from the physiological point of view, in my Vitality, Fasting and Nutrition, pp 225 to 350, and elsewhere. Journal, ASPR, April, 1908, Annals of Psychic Science, August, 1908, etc. The theory then advanced was that the human body more nearly resembles the electric motor than it does the steam engine, and that the ordinary theory, that chemical combustion of food supplies the vital energy of the body, is a mistake. Rather, the nervous system is recharged with vital energy during the hours of rest and sleep, and that food merely supplies broken down tissue. Arguments in support of this theory were then advanced, drawn from A. fasting cases, and B. daily observation, which shows us that, no matter how much food we eat, there always comes a time, nevertheless, when we must rest and sleep in order to restore this energy, and that no amount of food will take the place of sleep, thus differentiating the human body from all other machines. It was also pointed out that all the accepted facts of physiology, calorimeter experiments, etc., could be explained just as adequately on this theory as on that commonly accepted, and further that, if such a theory were true, it would enable us to accept and account the condenser, astral body, is greatly run down. That is what nervousness really is. The astral moves out more easily, sooner, while unconsciousness follows a moment later, hence the subject experiences the astral body movement. And just here another eccentric sensation is felt. The astral, where the mind really is, often gets the sensation of sinking or sliding, because the sensibility is in both bodies, and the physical seems to move downward, while, as a matter of fact, the astral moves upward. The subject, of course, thinks that he is in the physical body, while the truth is that he is a fraction of an inch discoincided from it. The question no doubt has presented itself in your mind: can the subject feel this disattachment of the astral when in the act of projection? Naturally, the subject would have to be conscious in order to know anything as to what is taking place, and, if he is, there are certain sensations, which when once he has become familiar with their significance, he will always recognize as signs of the loosening of the astral body. One does not have to experience an extensive projection in order to know what these feelings are like. He can experience them in the hypnagogic state when going to sleep if he will but concentrate his attention upon himself and try to see what is really happening as he enters sleep. In other words, if he will but train himself to keep the balance between consciousness and unconsciousness, while slightly favoring the former, without tension of mind, and will maintain this well into the hypnagogic state, he will feel the discoincidence as the phantom enters the zone of quietude, usually as a falling sensation, or as if air had suddenly accumulated under the center of his body, mostly under the stomach. A slight repercussion of body generally follows this, if conscious, because of emotion. There is one thing more to which I would call attention. When the subconscious contemplates an extensive projection, the astral phantom is put under the spell of catalepsy. This can take place either while in exact coincidence, or in the zone of quietude. If it, the astral body, becomes cataleptic, while in exact coincidence with the physical will be cataleptic, but if it comes under this spell while the phantom is in the zone of quietude, the physical does not become cataleptic. These conditions do not develop for many psychical phenomena which would be quite inexplicable on the ordinary, materialistic theory. The reader is referred to the argument for the detailed defense of this theory. Mr. Muldoon's idea that the astral body is the condenser or accumulator or vehicle of this energy is an extension of this view, postulating the astral body as the link between the nervous system and the cosmic reservoir of energy from which the energy is drawn. Our theories dovetail together with the greatest nicety, and I cannot but feel that the teachings of orthodox physiology must ultimately be modified, somewhat along these lines, in order to include supernormal physical phenomena, and also the reality and intermediary functioning of the astral body. HC suddenly, but creep over one almost unnoticed, and the subject must be very impressionable to catch them at all. When you experience the falling or sliding sensation in the hypnagogic state, and become startled, usually jumping, you may think you have been slightly conscious up to that time, but if you will observe the psychological changes very carefully, you will find that consciousness was slowly diminishing all the time. It was slowly diminishing, almost gone, then the sliding feeling concurrent with the startled jump, and you are conscious again. And if you think about it, you will admit that, for a moment, you were not sure of being conscious. It was during that very brief moment of unknowingness that the subconscious will move the phantom. Dream control. Many dreams are instigated by the state of the mind at this time, and you will acquire the ability to dream a certain dream, and in that dream you will often keep the body, astral, moving on, instead of stopping in the zone of quietude. We shall see, before finishing this work, how an astral projector can be dreaming and suddenly become conscious, and find his body projected in an environment suited to the dream. I have done this several times, and will relate these instances later. Thus you can, by practice, produce a desired dream. This is called dreaming true, and dream control is one method of producing projection of the astral phantom, and a pleasant way too. Of this subject Hereward Carrington says, there is a practical experiment which may be conducted, by which true dreams can be induced. It is very important to observe yourself in the process of falling to sleep, to observe consciousness while it is passing into the dream state. If you conduct experiments of this character on yourself, you will be enabled gradually to keep conscious control of yourself up to the moment you fall asleep, and this self-observation, the consciousness of going to sleep, is extremely interesting. When you have learned to do that, then construct before yourself, mentally, a definite scene, which you must hold firmly in mind. Then, as you are falling to sleep, hold this scene before you, and at the very last moment, before you fall asleep, consciously transfer yourself into the scene, in other words, step into the picture, and, if you have developed yourself to the requisite point, you will be enabled to carry over an unbroken consciousness into the dream state, and in this way you have a perfect continuity of thought. There is no break in the consciousness. You step into the dream picture and go on dreaming consciously. That is the process of to the power of one. Was it coincidence that put the term falling to sleep into use, I wonder, or was this brought into being because of the falling sensation, dreaming true, and after this dream is fully enacted, then you should remember perfectly all that has transpired during the sleep period. I wonder if Mr. Carrington knows how almost perfectly in harmony his instructions for dreaming true are with the method of dream control used to induce the astral body out into space, to enact a part in that dream. One step beyond what Mr. Carrington has here given is the accomplishment of moving out the astral body to a locale which the subconscious hitches up with the dream formulated by the conscious. Later, when you learn the method of promoting projection, and learn how to induce factors which are positive, or favorable to projection, you will be able to cause the astral actually to step out into the dream, and will either remember all that has transpired, on awaking, or will become wide awake during the act of the dream. In that case the dream vanishes and you are there, projected. This, you will recall, was the formula followed by Dr. Van Eden, which brought him such successful results. Care must be taken, however, in constructing the dream, and the dream must be fully thought out by the conscious mind, and repeatedly constructed, before the subconscious can reproduce it accordingly. Now, the nature of the dream to be produced is important, and should be built upon lines of action which correspond to the actions which the astral phantom naturally follows on exteriorizing, so that the sensation in the dream will agree with the sensation produced by the action of the phantom, should that phantom awaken. The nature of the dream must necessarily be that of plausibility, so that the sensation of the dream is enjoyed by the dreamer, and is also in harmony with the sensation of exteriorization. Then, if separation be induced, the sensations and emotions will be pleasant, should the phantom begin to regain consciousness. A dream which agrees in action and sensation with the same actions and sensations produced by exteriorization will tend to pull the phantom out. Action, of course, means action of self in the dream. One must have movement of self outstanding in the dream, must always be participating in the dream, not merely standing back and looking on. Still stronger promotive factors, to projection, will be induced if the dream be of this nature, and centered around a desire or suppressed desire. Later, I shall give specific directions for producing astral projection by dream control. A word of warning. If you are neurotic, easily influenced, lack will, and are fearful, if you have any reason to believe yourself susceptible to obsession, if you live in an atmosphere of discord, do not try to practice astral body projection. If you are this type, never think within yourself and never watch yourself in the process of falling to sleep. Turn toward physical culture rather than psychical culture. Subjects of nervous temperament are best suited for psychic experiments. While everyone slightly discoincides during sleep, i.e. moves into the zone of quietude, those of a nervous temperament do so sooner, more easily, and exteriorize further than those of other temperaments. Temperament, after all, has much to do with projection. The neurotic types, not being bound so strongly to the physical body, are the best subjects for projection, although other types are not to be considered immune. Here Ward Carrington, who has gone deeply into all phases of the occult, and whom I shall no doubt quote freely throughout this work, says, in summing up the experiments of Dr. Charles Lance Lynn, a French scientist and occultist, the right or suitable temperament must be chosen for the experiment, and if this be not found, the experiment is liable to fail, or only succeed partially. Temperament must not be confused with character or mental makeup. Temperament is a psychological state produced by the predominance of an element, organ or system in the human body. There are 4 chief types of temperament: nervous, bilious, lymphatic and sanguine. Of these, the nervous temperament is the best suited for psychic experiments of all kinds, the bilious is the most receptive, the sanguine is liable to hallucinations, both subjective and objective, while the lymphatic is the least suitable of all, from every point of view. Of course, one's temperament is usually a compound of all of these, which are rarely found in their ideal state, but the predominantly nervous temperament is the one best suited for this test, as for all other psychic experiments. Now, there is at all times a certain outflowing of nervous force, or externalization of neuricity, as it is called, in all individuals, but this becomes very pronounced in certain types of individuals known as mediums or psychics. In them this force, which is thus radiated, can be measured by means of specially constructed instruments, known as biometers, sphenometers, etc. Several instruments of this kind have been devised by French experimenters. They show that there is a repulsive force generated from one side of the body and an attractive force from the other side. In normal human beings these forces should be equal. When they are not, odd things are likely to happen in their immediate environment. Their relative power may be tested by means of these instruments. Although, as Lance Lynn has pointed out, there is an inflowing and outflowing of cosmic energy, or force, in all types, during the waking to the power of one, the reader must bear in mind that this quotation embodies merely a summary of the views of M. Lance Lynn. H.C. Hours, the outflow exceeds the inflow, especially in the nervous type. So, when sleep intervenes, which is nature's way of charging up the condenser, the astral condenser separates from the physical body. The nervous type, requiring the greatest amount of recharging, moves out of coincidence more easily, sooner, and to a greater distance than any other type. When outside cord activity range, the phantom is free. Once the phantom advances beyond cord activity range, it is free and subject to its own will. There is no longer any liability to eccentricities of the senses, instability of body, or other complications which are present before reaching this superior position. These complications do not all disappear in an instant, but gradually, as the body has been advancing, and, when projection eventually reaches a certain point, the cable has diminished to its minimum caliber, resembling a long strand of spider web and showing no activity whatever. Regardless of the apparent deadness or laxity of the cord, there is necessarily an intrinsic flow of cosmic energy from the astral, or animate, to the physical, the inanimate, but this flow of force by no means compares, in quality, with what it was before this advancement. Prolonged projection in the type of projection which is distant and prolonged, the physical may take on a cadaverous aspect, the cosmic energy it receives being meager in amount. There are accounts of people who, while projected, have been thought dead. This is rare, of course, but the physical body may have all the appearances of being dead. When projection is of this type, the temperature of the torpid member may take an unbelievable fall, the condition much resembling hibernation in animals. The projector cannot get lost. You may wonder if this projection is not after all a dangerous practice. You may wonder if the phantom, once free, cannot lose itself, if it might not remain at a distance for too long a period of time, and allow the physical body to expire. As a rule, the subconscious controlling power knows exactly what it is doing. It is a far better detector of conditions than the conscious mind. Do you think that one could project himself into the free state, outside cord activity range, and be conscious there and refuse to come back, and thus allow his physical body to die? Naturally, one who has never projected may seize upon this idea, but he will find, when he attempts to stay away too long from the physical body, that he cannot retain consciousness. Some authorities believe that a projector can become lost, while out of the body. This is not true. Again, these same authorities will tell you that the astral body can project to distant and unfamiliar places by an effort of will. This is true, and being true, the projector cannot become lost, for he can return to his physical body by willing to do so. The subconscious mind can intervene in the twinkling of an eye and pull back the phantom instantly, from any distant place, into cord activity range, whence it is pulled back into the physical. In fact, it is subconscious power that speeds the phantom to distant places and back again, even though consciousness be never missed during that infinitesimal moment. One can be walking about, outside cord activity range, perfectly conscious, and suddenly find himself under subconscious control and moving toward the physical to interiorize. So, you see, it makes no difference whether one does get outside cord activity range and is free, he is still under the operating subconscious will. You may have nursed the opinion that one might become dissociated from his physical counterpart and wander into some strange place in the astral, and, being conscious, not have the insight or sense of direction to find his way back again to his material abode. This is impossible. The subconscious will can shoot one back into the physical, almost before the thought of getting back has fully completed itself. You may think that the conscious mind is in itself wonderful, you may fancy that you can think and act with rapidity, but once you have become conscious in the astral body, you will realize at what a snail's pace the conscious mind moves in comparison with the superintelligence which is subconscious. If you undertake to develop projection of the astral body, you need have no fear of becoming lost in the astral. How the physical is recharged during projection. I have on different occasions observed that while one is in the free state, no matter whether in the immediate environment of the shell or remote from it, he will be shot back within cord activity range at intervals, and at once the physical body will begin to respire in a stronger manner. It is plain that the subconscious has an eye on the condition of the physical body, as well as everything else, and that the condenser of cosmic energy, the phantom, is brought back to charge up the physical through the medium of the cable, which has increased in size as the bodies approach one another, and is carrying over a stronger line of force. In his book Higher Psychical Development, Carrington has said, "This question of the projection of the astral body is a very important one, because, in the first place, it is one of the most interesting of all psychic experiments, and is, in one sense, the object of attainment of all three schools, the yoga, the occult, and psychic. They all endeavor to arrive at very much the same result, by different means, and they attain it in different degrees of self-consciousness. When the yogi has obtained the degree of perfection in which he can project his astral body at will, he can travel to great distances and see and hear distant events, which accounts for the Hindu's extraordinary power of knowing things which are happening at a distance, and also renders possible voluntary interment for long periods of time, or burial, and so forth, the astral being removed from the physical. The body of sensation being entirely gone, the physical body merely keeps up its vegetative functions, for the time being, sufficiently to allow life, in some sense, to remain in it. But, you see, the physical body is supported, on this theory, by a continuous life current, which travels to it from the astral body, through this astral cord or connection, connecting it with the astral, and after he is revived and has been restored from the trance state, the yogi claims to remember the experiences which he has passed through, during this period of interment, when he was apparently dead to the outer world. In her commendable work, My Experiences While Out of My Body, Cora L. V. Richmond has said, "I became aware of being led to where the earthly form was still breathing, being cared for and imbued with breath by a guardian spirit, and by devoted friends in human life." From this we learn, and it is true, that friends in the invisible realm can and many times do lend a helping hand to the projected medium, which naturally is a great asset in conquering this phase. There is one inconsistency found in this testimony of Mrs. Richmond, however, which is that her guardian spirit is credited with imbuing the senseless body with breath. We have already learned that the force which regulates breathing is transmitted from the astral body to the physical, through the astral cord. To imbue the earthly counterpart with life is the ultimate purpose of the astral cord. Friends in the invisible world can aid. Of this there can be no doubt. But the power of respiration comes through the astral cable. It is probable that Mrs. Richmond, beholding a friend watching over her, assumed that what she has said was true. Astral exteriorization is not dependent upon spirits in any way, yet they, spirits, can assist. Projection can take place without a mortal or spirit ever nearing the physical form. The directing power lies within the individual himself. It is evident that Mrs. Richmond took it for granted that the guardian spirit was responsible for the breathing process. It has been shown how, during projection into the free state, the phantom is brought back at intervals to recharge the physical. Further searching into Mrs. Richmond's experiences reveals the fact that she was, after all, aware of this line of force operating between the bodies, for in another place she says, "These periods of calling my attention to and visiting the body were brief, just enough to keep the vital spark alive, etc." A student, in attempting this phase, should never forget that the superintelligence which performs the seeming miracle is within himself. He need never suppose that, in undertaking his development, he is entrusting his life to the conscious intelligence of anyone, either mortal or spirit, although he should be thankful for any aid others may render him. It is the superintelligence within him which handles the situation, and if he even forms the idea that he must depend upon others in the spirit, he will probably never achieve his aim. To accomplish results, therefore, do not go outside yourself, go within yourself. "I am a jealous God," says the Bible. The God within you is likewise, and if you do not depend upon his wisdom, but believe it is to be found in spirits, he will not act favorably. Not dead, but sleeping. There are, of course, exceptions to all rules, but in following the usual course of life we depend upon the general trend, and not upon the exceptional, and although the subconscious, during a projection, almost invariably carries itself with omnipotent dignity, there is always the possibility of some complication. The controlling intelligence may make occasional mistakes, but when it does so it is because of some foreign influence. So, if there are recorded cases of mediums having met with unfortunate results, or even death, it is because of the exceptional. Cora L. V. Richmond is said to have remained projected in the astral for many days. Hamid Bey, the youngest of Egyptian Farkas, whose marvelous demonstrations of the power of the mind over the body have startled the Western world, has undertaken several prolonged public burials. He remained buried an hour in Atlanta, GA, 3 hours in Englewood, NJ, 7 hours in San Diego, Cal, etc., without any coffin having been placed directly in the ground, with the earth covering his face and body, in the presence of skeptical newspaper men. Accounts of these burials were published in the press at the time, and are available to any interested reader. Although these performances may strike the average spectator as almost unbelievable, such demonstrations are by no means uncommon in the Orient, and hundreds of similar cases have been reported by travelers returning from India, Egypt, and other Eastern countries. Many of these burials were under excellent conditions, the whole procedure being controlled by skeptical witnesses. Some years ago, a celebrated Farka from the province of Lahore, India, was buried for a period of 30 days, under the supervision of Prince Ranjit Singh and Sir Claude Wade. The Farka was placed in a sack, after entering the state of catalepsy, which was securely tied. This sack was then placed in a box, which was locked, the keys being kept by the British general. The box was then deposited in a brick vault, the door of which was sealed with Ranjit Singh's seal, and a guard of British soldiers was detailed to guard the vault day and night. At the end of the 30 days, the vault was opened, the box and sack unfastened, and the Farka, very emaciated, but still alive, was resuscitated by his friends. If projection of this type were not fully governed by an all-knowing intelligence, the body would surely have been neglected, and, should the unusual intervene, i.e. should the astral body not be pulled back within cord activity range from time to time, to recharge the physical, death would have been the natural consequence. It is obvious that, during an extensive and prolonged projection, the material counterpart might assume the characteristics of a corpse, and the temperature drop exceedingly low, even to such an extent that the misunderstanding people of the world would pronounce the subject dead. I have concluded, as the result of a study of this subject, that the heart may actually cease beating for some time, and yet the astral cord may not be disconnected. Naturally, this condition could not exist long before the cord would snap. In a recent press article, the head of the American Medical Association stated that resuscitation is sometimes possible, after 4 hours of apparent death. Mr. Carrington has written several books on death, and has summarized many cases of premature burial. There can be no doubt, says this authority, that many hundreds of persons have been buried alive, during the centuries which have preceded us. Societies for the prevention of premature burial have actually been formed in England, America, etc. Cases of trance, catalepsy, suspended animation, etc., were mistaken for death before our more modern methods of diagnosis were introduced. Historic accounts, and the statements of returning spirits, if this testimony may be accepted as probable, seem to indicate that the astral line of force severs more rapidly at death with some individuals than with others. It is probable that we exercise too much haste in soliciting the services of the undertaker when someone is pronounced dead, and, as the saying goes, not allowing the corpse to get cold. There are many records of people who have been pronounced dead and returning to life, and there is always such a possibility, if the astral cable be still intact, even though it be exceptional. Exteriorization might be enduring, the physical appear cadaverous, and an embalmer might have completed his work before the termination of a prolonged projection. In one book, which has the endorsement of prominent spiritualists, a spirit claims to have been earthbound, and related that he was held in this condition because a mere thread was holding him to the physical counterpart for many months after the burial. How much truth there may be in this account I do not know. In the Bible there are several accounts of individuals who were brought back to life. Take, for example, Christ's resurrection of his friend Lazarus. If Lazarus were actually dead and the astral cable disconnected, then Christ did perform a miracle, but if the cable was still engaged, it was an apparent miracle, and the resurrection was merely a resuscitation. Christ was a marvelous occultist and seer, the peer of mediums, and was a friend of Lazarus. Might it not be possible that Lazarus was an astral projector? There seems to have been some misunderstanding on the part of the disciples as to whether Lazarus was really dead or not. Christ first of all told his followers that Lazarus was not dead, this sickness is not unto death. Next he told them that Lazarus was asleep, our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go now that I may awake him from sleep. Christ next went to the grave where Lazarus lay, a cave with a stone upon it. He ordered the stone to be removed and with a loud voice cried, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth. Could not a similar demonstration be given today, by a hypnotist and an astral projector? Another Bible instance of resuscitation is the bringing to life of a certain ruler's daughter. And he cometh to the house of a ruler of the synagogue, and seeth the tumult, and them that wept and wailed greatly. And when he was come in, he said unto them, Why make ye this ado, and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed him to scorn. But when he had put them all out, he taketh the father and the mother of the damsel, and them that were with him, and entered in where the damsel was lying. And he took the damsel by the hand, and he said unto her, Talitha cumi, which is, being interpreted, Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked. For these few singular demonstrations Christ gained the reputation of being capable of resurrecting the dead, but in every case Jesus himself stated that the subjects were not dead, but sleeping. If the persons were literally dead, if the line of force had actually been severed, and still they were brought back to life, is it not a wonder that more were not likewise revived? Surely there were others, begging to be reunited with their loved ones, innocent children crying for their mothers, lovers begging for their sweethearts who lay in death, pathetic mourners all about, and yet only a few were resurrected. There is much evidence to sustain the belief that those who were restored were still on the astral plane. But it is not necessary to go back to Bible times to find accounts of those who, having been thought dead, were miraculously restored to life. Such things occasionally happen in every generation. Knowing this to be true, at one time, in France, bodies of those pronounced dead were first taken to a morgue, there to lie under watch for a definite time before burial was permitted. Thus it was hoped to avoid the possibility that any of the victims might be prematurely interred. Not many years ago, in a little Iowa town, funeral services were taking place. The victim lay in state in the church, and, as her friends were taking the last view of the remains, blood was seen oozing from the nose of the corpse. The woman came back to life, and lived for many years afterward. This writer is acquainted with trustworthy persons who can swear to the truth of this incident. All this, of course, relates directly to astral phenomena. Once the astral cable severs from the physical body, that body is on the road to the dust whence it came. What has been said in the preceding paragraphs regarding projection need not frighten the student who is attempting to develop. The chances that the subconscious will go wrong are insignificant. Severe sickness, in which life is a matter of uncertainty, is usually the cause of such disastrous results as have been depicted, and in this case the projection is brought about involuntarily. It may readily be seen that, although sickness is an incentive toward projection of the astral body, one should not be in too subnormal a condition, physically, when attempting a prolonged projection. The astral cable is akin to the umbilical cord. Now that we have compared projection with death, let us for a moment compare it with birth. Do not the astral body and the astral cable afford striking similarities to the newborn physical body and the umbilical cord? And, after all, which process is the more mysterious? So far as understanding the intelligence behind either of these processes is concerned, they are in the same category. It has always occurred to me as inconsistent for the skeptic to refer to birth as natural, and astral projection as supernatural, when he can explain neither. It is merely this: what we call unnatural is natural only because we have become familiar with it, for even that natural is often inexplicable. Because he is unfamiliar with the phenomenon of astral projection, the unbeliever scorns the idea on the ground that it is supernatural. Still, physical birth, with the body existing at the end of the cord, is called natural, simply because he is familiar with it, not that it is less mysterious than projection. But such is the way of the human mind. The supernatural, undoubtedly, does not exist. It is the unfamiliar which is called supernatural. A grain of sand is as mysterious as a planet, a physical body as mysterious as an astral body, the umbilical cord as mysterious as the astral cord. So when we think of that wonderful organism, the astral cord, and wonder at its ability to sustain life, there may be some satisfaction, or dissatisfaction, in knowing that the astral and umbilical cords are strikingly similar. By aid of a placenta, a fertilized ovum is able to form a complete separate new organism, in itself, one would think, a sufficiently extraordinary fact. Sir Chapter 7, where the astral line of force makes contact with